Hello and welcome to my channel. Vice Rhino here. Nobody over there. I mean, Heidi's over there, but she doesn't feel like being on the stream tonight, so she is with us in spirit and sometimes as a quiet voice off to the side. Yeah, we're gonna watch the debate tonight. Cirrus pulled out at the last minute because he was tired of you guys saying he was pregnant, and pulling out is how he solves that, I guess. He's in Pennsylvania or some shit. I don't know. He went to New York and then he went somewhere else. Might be Ohio. I don't actually know where Cirrus is, but he's like doing real world shit with flesh people. And yeah, no, I don't. That's not my thing. I do computer people. There's only one flesh person in my life. Yeah, anyway, so it's just me tonight. Yeah, so let's hope I can hold the show. Yeah, so the debate's starting in half an hour. We're going to watch that. In the meantime, I have a couple of news articles that I want to gloss over, not cover in great detail. That was Rosina Keller saying, "Yay, one of my two favorite cam boys." Ooh, all the things. And then Axo is quoting me saying flesh people doing flesh things. Or did I say that? Or are you just saying that because I said flesh people? I don't know. I don't remember what I say. So I'm just going to take credit for that. And yeah, so going to cover the debate. Going to gloss over some news items that it would be weird if I didn't cover them. Hydrate. Fine. I'll hydrate. I have my water today. I do have my beer. I also have ice with my beer. I like tripped over you on my way out to get it. You didn't notice. Zarask says, flesh people, my least favorite kind of people. Yeah, so these are things that it would be weird if I didn't at least touch on them. This is a bit of an older one. I could have covered it last week, but I didn't. Louisiana has now made it a law that classrooms have to display the Ten Commandments. One specific version of the Ten Commandments, too. They're trying to get away from Chaz Stevens, who does actually currently have a fundraiser up to have some fun with this, because there's always loopholes. Thank you to a Clever Girl 1993198 for resubscribing. But yeah, ACLU is suing them. Chaz Stevens has set up a fundraiser to send them his custom posters. And there's ideas like they don't say what size any of the words have to be, so he's going to do like everything in small font and then like just really big kill and stuff like that. So that's fun. Yeah, so Axo says all public schools. What if it's a Muslim school or a pagan school? Well, it's all public schools, so there are no Muslim public schools or pagan public schools. However, there are Muslim and pagan children at public schools, which is why the ACLU is filing suit with us, and they are trying to anticipate this nutcase Supreme Court's objection, or they're trying to anticipate the reasoning. So they're like filing it under like, this is a religious freedom issue where like even Christians, like there's more than one version of the Ten Commandments. So there are Christians who are going to be forced to see this one specific version of the Ten Commandments in their school that they disagree with it. Because like the Catholic version is different than the Protestant version, and there's probably like 2 or 3 different Protestant versions. It doesn't help that there's like 13 of the 10 Commandments, so they get to divide them up in fun little ways. But like the idea that you could put up a list of rules where rule number 1 is worship the Jewish God. Sorry, they think it's the Christian God, but this is Old Testament shit, so it's the Jewish God. So worship the God of Israel. And somehow forcing all the schools to show that in every classroom is not establishing government religion. Like, it couldn't be more clear-cut. We got people talking about Oklahoma. Yeah, so Oklahoma, that's a new one that just broke today. So Oklahoma, the superintendent, this isn't a law. This is a superintendent making school policy, um, but they're still going to get their pantsuit off them. So the Oklahoma superintendent makes it mandatory that all schools incorporate the Bible and the Ten Commandments into their curriculums, effective immediately, including a provision that every classroom from grades 5 through 12 must have a Bible, and all teachers must teach from the Bible in the classroom. So, like,
The rape scenes too?
yeah, that was my thing. Is like, okay, can I go be a teacher in Oklahoma? I got some Bible verses I'd like to teach from. Because yeah, there's a lot of stuff in like Axo was asking, can it be the Satanic Bible? I'm guessing no. Xena says Protestants versus Catholics. Yeah. Yeah. Which Bible? The Catholic Bible has 75 or 76 books, depending on who you ask, because even in one denomination they can't agree on which books are the holy books. Although, no, that one is depending on whether or not you split Lamentations off as a separate book from, I think it's Jeremiah. So that's less egregious than just different books, but still. Hi, Sunshini. Yeah, so they're going to get their pantsuit off them for that. And hopefully the Supreme Court doesn't fuck it up like we know they want to. Loki says Rhino would get fired because he'd teach about the donkey verse. / just kidding. No, not kidding. You want me to teach about the Bible? That's a thing that's in the Bible. Someone just free subscribed. Critical Displacement just subscribed. Thank you for your subscription. And now I guess we have a hype train, which means I'm supposed to acknowledge that and do something. I don't know. I'm not a Twitch streamer. I'm a YouTuber who streams on Twitch, not a Twitch streamer. Something donkey cock and horse cum. No, is it backwards? I don't know. I always get it mixed up whether it's the donkey cock or the horse cock, or the horse cum or the donkey cum. I don't know. But yeah, there's that. There's the rules about slavery. There's Jesus telling people that they must hate their families in order to worship him. Axo with the fact check saying it's donkey cock and horse cum. Thank you for that. Oh, yeah, so Jassa says, did you see the tweet that I tweeted at you about MTG calling a cis woman in drag a man? I did see that. I did not collect that for tonight because I was already done collecting for tonight. But it's always funny to see her cell phoneage. And then also, last one I want to cover tonight is DeSantis vetoed all of the arts funding from Florida. Every single public art grant, gone. $32 million. And now he's bragging about how he's keeping things under budget. And it's like, it's just mind-boggling. Like, he lives in Florida. Arts are a huge part of tourism. And you just yanked all of it. Like, all of it. And tourism is Florida's whole thing. Like, what the fuck? I don't know. That, like, I don't even understand the reasoning behind that one. Oh, yeah. In the opposite direction, as Jassa says, in the opposite direction, I learned that at the Denver Public Library, I can 3D print stuff for free. Take my tax money, library. Yeah, a lot of libraries will let you 3D print stuff. Sometimes it's free. Sometimes they charge you a small amount. I know my library, last time I did anything like that there, it was like $1. But then I got my own 3D printer, and I can print cool stuff like these, like the fidget gears. This is fun. I always know if one of the fidget toys that I print, I always know it's a good toy because she will steal it from me if it's a good one. That's why I have the Switch, because this one's not very good. It doesn't the click isn't satisfying enough. Like it's too mushy. So because it's mushy, I get to keep it. Okay, so let's look at some tweets. We got about 20 minutes, a little under 20 minutes. So Brian Holdsworth says, Jesus famously warned his disciples that the world would hate them. If your church finds itself fully aligned with all the tenets of the secular world, either Jesus lied or you're not doing it right. I've got a third option for you. Jesus was wrong. Fourth option, Jesus never said that. Fifth option, Jesus never existed, which I guess is a subcategory of the last one. But yeah, there's lots of options other than those two. That's called a false dichotomy, Brian. I know Brian likes his philosophy stuff. He likes to pretend that he's very sophisticated. So the fact that he's making such a very rudimentary mistake, philosophically speaking. And we got, oh, this was fun. So Apologia tweeted, the Ten Commandments aren't morality. No law is morality. Obedience isn't morality. A moral person demonstrates the ability to evaluate how an action will impact others and acts accordingly. Cameron retweeted that, saying, we're all very fortunate to have atheist YouTubers inform us about the true nature of morality. Without getting into the weeds as to what morality even is, I would just like to point out that Cameron very publicly converted to a religion that has a budget, like they famously have a budgetary line item dedicated to protecting child molesters. So something stones and glass houses. It's just one of those, like, yeah, I would rather learn about morality from Paul than Cameron. Because Cameron is a smarmy piece of shit. Sorry, I'm supposed to be more cordial than that. I think. Something like that. I don't know. But that's what I think. Just, it isn't even glass. It's like paper. Yeah. Gotta have a case orb. So Biden says, I'm not interested in playing politics with the border or immigration like Trump does. I'm interested in fixing it. Now, Biden has not been great on the border because he's actually enacted a lot of stuff that Trump enacted, or he's continued a lot of stuff that Trump enacted, and he hasn't, like, gotten back to the humanitarian stuff. However, this interaction kind of took place when Biden did a good with the border. There's that thing like... It's kind of a running joke in media that, like, easy way to get a green card is just marry someone in the States or marry a citizen and you get your green card. Well, as it turns out, that's not quite how it works. In order to do it that way, you have to have entered the country legally. And there's like a bunch of other stipulations on there. So like you can't sneak into the country and marry someone. And
well,
I don't remember all of the details, but there's more to it than that. But there are a lot of people that, like, they entered the country legally, but then they overstayed their visa, and then they married someone, but because they overstayed a visa, they aren't eligible for the green card. And Biden signed an executive order that would allow people that have been waiting for, like, going through the application process for the green card for like 10 years. It basically puts them on the fast track. And so, yeah, he did a good thing that would allow married people to stay married in the States and contributing to the economy and everything. And the right-wing media just immediately jumped on that and was like, oh, he's trying to make illegals citizens so that they can vote for him. Like, no, man, he's just trying to let married people stay married in the States. It's fine. Rosina says, the Ten Commandments says nothing about protecting children. No, it does not. It does say that you're not allowed to want your neighbor's slaves. So, Yeah. It doesn't say slaves are wrong, just that you're not allowed to want someone else's. So, owning slaves is fine. It's just wanting people's slaves that isn't. But anyway, Sorbo says Trump has had the most aggressive border policies ever seen. Um, by aggressive, do you mean like inhumane? So remember that was the administration that was like, oh, let's in order to disincentivize people fleeing their countries for their lives, let's separate their families at the border and then lose track of their kids. That'll stop people from fleeing their dangerous situations to us. Don't give us your poor, your tired, your huddled masses. Keep them to yourself. So yeah, if that's what you mean by aggressive, then sure, I suppose. And then he says, you repealed them and gave illegal aliens voting rights. No, illegal migrants don't have voting rights. You have to be a citizen to vote. I don't think you can even vote if you have a green card. I think you do actually have to be a citizen. I'm not sure about that. So, yeah. And then he says, disrespectfully, shut up. But, oh, speaking of shut up, did you guys see David Tennant telling that English person who's ranting and raving about how much they hate trans people to shut up? And then Rishi Sunak tried to call him out on it. Fucking love David Tennant. So Rob says, I just don't understand how anyone could read 66 books of the Bible and come to the conclusion that the Roman Catholic Church is biblical. I see where he's coming from, but like, I don't see how anyone could read the 66 books of the Bible and come to the conclusion that any Christian denomination is actually biblical, because they are quite different from what's actually in the book. But then a Catholic responded saying, there are 73 books. Oh, did I have the number wrong earlier? I thought it was 75. There are 73 books, but even reading the 66 in the Protestant Bible, the Catholic Church and her claims were fully biblical and compelling from Scripture. No, they're not. Like, what even is Scripture? Because, like, the modern canon, this is all of them. Like, there's three major ones. There's the Orthodox ones, the Catholic ones, and the Protestant ones. They didn't come into existence until the 1500s. So like, what were Christians before that? If it's all about the Scripture, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. Lady Merlin for $2 says Tennant is my favorite Doctor. Mine too. Transformed Wife says you know what? That's the last one, and it's almost debate time, so we're just gonna skip that because I have some. That's long. She talks about how someone went to college and became a lesbian at college because it's the Transformed Wife. It's the same shit that she always does. But anyway, we're going to the debate soon, whenever they're ready. But before we do that, I do have a thing that I want to read through. We're gonna play a game tonight. We're gonna do presidential debate bingo, courtesy of the people over at the Lincoln Project. And so, yeah, they've got a bunch of Trump's catchphrases and things that he says and does all the time on a bingo card. So if he says massive fraud, Hunter Biden, so if he brings up Hunter, anything that's a QAnon dog whistle. If he says radical left, this country is going to hell. So if he says that, anytime he says tremendous, I'm not sure what gag is. Is that supposed to be like he says the word gag, he makes a gagging thing? Is gagging a thing that he does? Or is that gays against groomers? I don't know. Oh, brings up the gag order and he actually gags. Yeah, okay. He gagged me. There's audio clip of Donald Trump saying about the judge, he gagged me. If he says he's the most persecuted man, Russia, 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 Fonnie Willis, Jack Smith, Letitia James, Alvin Bragg mentioned. Now, is this an and or an or, do you think? I think it was written as an or, but I almost feel like this is going to be a too easy to full square bingo. Should we make that an and? Zoom in, but then we have to make them smaller. So yeah, should Fonnie Willis, Jack Smith, Letitia James, Alvin Bragg be an and or an or, do you think? Let's see. Let's do a poll. No. Go away. Start poll. I'm sorry, Twitch people. I don't know how to do that on Twitch. I know there's a way. Shield mode, highlight settings, chat settings. Cheer. Smiley face? No, there's no polls in that. I know there's a way to do it, but damned if I can find it. Give it to us, we can pin. I don't know. People are saying or. I feel like that should be an and. It's way too easy. Mods can do it. Do I have mods? I think I have a mod. Oh, type /poll. Ah, there we go. And or. Responses. And or. Duration 1 minute. Sure, why not? You have two of us. You gave them swords, Rhino. Yeah, do I look like someone who knows what I'm doing? That's what the sword means. I didn't even know that that's what the sword meant. Okay, looks like or is winning, so I guess we'll probably make it or. And or equals or. That's logic, that is. Okay, yeah, everybody's... Oh, we get the hats. Let's start with the new hat. Yeah, new-ish. Okay, or one. So that's an or. We've got Russia. No, we got Trump talks with his hands. That one almost should have been in the middle. Woke, free square. Trump short circuits. Jacked up Joe, open borders. COVID shutdowns mentioned. Bonus points if he doesn't mention that he's the one that started them. Crisis, we built the wall. Trump calls moderators fake news. I mean, he's on CNN, that's kind of a given. Biden crime family, climate hoax, think of it. January 6th called peaceful, and Trump keeps talking after his mic is muted. I mean, so many of these are just like, should be middle square. But, yeah, there's 4 minutes until the debate officially starts, but Trump likes to be late to everything, so won't surprise me if it starts late. Do you think he's going to try and give Biden COVID again? I'm going to follow with the flags for good bingo card. I don't know what that is. Ooh, Neon Void Kitty, first time chat, says this card will be solid filled within 15 minutes of him talking. Yeah, I don't doubt that. And Rosina says Jacked Up Joe occurs in the first minute of his opening statement. Wait, you're saying that like it's already happened. Have they started opening statements yet? No. That was kind of loud. Oh, Drew says if I start yelling at my phone, I'm gonna dip. I'm sorry that you're gonna dip then, because Trump will be talking. Oh, thanks for the follow, people that are following. Yeah, you found me on Twitch. I don't know what I'm doing over here, but I am here. Here I am, Lord. Is it I, Lord? Should start a stream. Should I get my acoustic guitar out, start singing worship songs as we...
Do they know that you were like a worship?
Do they know that I was on the worship team?
Yeah.
I don't know. I know I have mentioned it before. Whether or not every single one of my audience members remembers that fact. Like, I can barely remember the videos that I make. So, I'm not going to expect everybody else to remember all of my videos. Fennec the Rabbit is saying, what is worship team?
What?
That is when you are one of the people in the church band. I played guitar. They have singers and pianists. Pianists. Always love to show off their penis. Drums. Yeah. Playing the most banal music ever. Like, I still know all the songs. Like, when I pick up a guitar now, 50-50 shot that the first thing that I start playing is a worship song because they're so easy and they're all the same. So like a stage band, but with less cool music, I guess. What's a stage band? Wonder what PBS NewsHour is doing right now. Probably covering something worth listening to. Unlike me.
Power. Bringing you the analysis that you need thoughtfully with context.
No, I'm here for the analysis. What are you guys talking about? Just show me the debate.
Welcome to America Decides.
America Decides on the Canadian Broadcasting System.
People say who's first to get in the morning. That would be me.
That's not what CBS stands for, is it? Is CBS Canadian? Yeah, CBC is Canadian Broadcasting Corporation.
And we make you feel like, you know, it's not all...
No, that's just a commercial for... No, PBS is doing a simulcast. Okay. I almost wish I wish I knew about that, because then I would have chosen the PBS one, because PBS is a good news organization. Central Broadcasting System. It's centralized.
This is a CBS News special.
This is a CBS News special where we play footage given to us by CNN.
Good evening. We are just moments away from one of the most...
Okay, well, I don't want moments away. Let me know when you're actually at the thing. Wait, apparently the C stands for Columbia? Columbia Broadcasting System? Knowing MAGA, they probably think it stands for Communist Broadcasting System. Probably. Oh, C-SPAN's doing the simulcast? Okay, that might be worth switching for. C-SPAN. Okay.
In American history, we want to welcome our viewers in the United States and around the world to our studios in Atlanta. This is the CNN presidential debate.
Oh, I guess they're just straight up playing the footage from CNN.
And is coming to you live on CNN, CNN International, CNN.com.
CBS stands for Cute Baby Seals.
CNN Espanol. This is a pivotal moment between President Joe Biden.
Blah, 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 blah. Do we all know the rules, right? So like they got 1 minute for... No, they got 2 minutes for their statement, 1 minute for rebuttal. Their microphones get muted when they're not talking.
Moderate this evening. Our job is to facilitate a debate between the two candidates tonight. Before we...
Did you guys see the debate in Colorado where what's his face? I forget the anchor's name. It was like Kyle something, and he just completely thrashed all of the candidates. That was Lauren Boebert's thing. Where like every time they said anything, yeah, Kyle Clark. Anytime they said anything, be like he'd ask a question, be like, "Okay, well, I would just like to make a point that you chose not to answer that question. Moving on." It was Kyle Clark was amazing.
It's time for a candidate to speak. His microphone will be turned on, and his opponent's microphone will be turned off.
The best part about the microphone muting thing is that we all know that it's because of Trump. There's Coriolis builds storms. That they do. Yeah, like everybody knows that Trump is the reason for the microphone muting thing, because he does not know how to shut his mouth. And what's hilarious is that in the pre-debate analysis stuff that CBS was doing, they kept on. Here we go. We got people. In the pre-debate analysis, they kept on talking about how Trump's team was like telling him to be more polite and more cordial, not as brash. And like they were talking about it as if he was actually going to do it. He looks pissed.
Gentlemen, thanks so much for being here. Let's begin the debate, and let's start with the issue that voters consistently say is their top concern, the economy. President Biden, inflation has slowed, but prices remain high. Since you took office, the price of essentials has increased. For example, a basket of groceries that cost $100 then now costs more than $120. And typical home prices have jumped more than 30%. What do you say to voters who feel they are worse off under your presidency than they were under President Trump?
We got to take a look at what I was left when I became president, what Mr. Trump left me. We had an economy that was in free fall. The pandemic was so badly handled. Many people were dying.
Sounds like an old man.
It's not that serious. Just inject a little bleach into your arm. You'll be all right. The economy collapsed. There were no jobs. Unemployment rate rose to 15%. It was terrible. And so what we had to do is try to put things back together again. And that's exactly what we began to do. We created 15,000 new jobs. We brought out the position where we have 800,000 new manufacturing jobs. But there's more to be done. There's more to be done. Working class people are still in trouble. I come from Scranton, Pennsylvania. I come of a household where the kitchen table, if the things weren't able to be met during the month,
we should have had a
problem.
We should have had a bingo card for Biden as well for Scranton.
The price of a whole range of things. That's why I'm working so hard to make sure I deal with those problems. And we're going to make sure that we reduce the price of housing. We're going to make sure we build 2 million new units. We're going to make sure we cap rents so corporate greed can't take over. The
Capping rents. Nice. Actually do it.
Greed is the reason why we're in this problem right now. In addition to that, we're in a situation where if you take a look at all that was done in his administration, he didn't do much at all. By the time he left, things were in chaos.
He made a big mess.
Literally chaos. And so we put things back together. We created, I said, those jobs. We make sure we had a situation where we brought down the price of prescription drugs, which is a major issue for many people, to $15 for a insulin shot as opposed to $400. No senior has to pay more than $200 for any drug, all the drugs they can include beginning next year. And the situation is and we're going to make that available to everybody, to all Americans. So we're working to bring down the price around the kitchen table, and that's what we're going to get done.
Thank you. President Trump?
We have the greatest economy in the history of our country. We have never done so well. Everybody was amazed by it. Other countries were copying us. We got hit with COVID, and when we did, we spent the money necessary so we wouldn't end up in a Great Depression, the likes of which we had in 1929. By the time we finished, so we did a great job. We got a lot of credit for the economy, a lot of credit for the military, and no wars, and so many other things. Everything was rocking good. But the thing we never got the credit for, and we should have, is getting us out of that COVID mess. He created mandates that was a disaster for our country. But other than that, we had given them back a country where the stock market
wasn't Trump the one that created the vaccine mandates first?
And nobody thought that was even possible. The only jobs he created are for illegal immigrants and bounce back jobs, a bounce back from the COVID. He has not done a good job. He's done a poor job, and inflation's killing our country. It is absolutely killing us.
Thank you. President Biden?
Well, look, the greatest economy in the world, he's the only one who thinks that, I think. I don't know anybody else who thinks he had the greatest economy in the world. And, you know, the fact of the matter is that we found ourselves in a situation where his economy, he rewarded the wealthy. He had the largest tax cut in American history, $2 trillion. He raised a deficit larger than any president has in any one term. He's the only president other than Herbert Hoover who's lost more jobs than he had when he began, since Herbert Hoover. The idea that he did something that was significant. And the military, you know, when he was president, they were still killing people in Afghanistan. He didn't do anything about that. When he was president, we were still finding ourselves in a position where you had a notion that we were this safe country. The truth is, I'm the only president this century
need some water.
that doesn't have any, this decade, that doesn't have any troops dying anywhere in the world like he did.
President Trump, I want to follow up if I can.
That didn't make any sense.
Allowed to respond to him?
Well, I'm going to ask you a follow-up. You can do whatever you want with the minute that we give you. I want to follow up. You want to impose a 10% tariff on all goods coming into the U.S. How will you ensure that that doesn't drive prices even higher?
It's not going to drive them higher. It's just going to cause countries that have been ripping us off for years.
That's not how
like
tariffs
China
work,
and many
you
others,
idiot.
in all fairness to China. It's going to just force them to pay us a lot of money, reduce our deficit tremendously.
The consumers pay the
and
tariffs.
give us a lot of power for other things. But
China doesn't pay the tariff when you put a tariff on Chinese things.
What he was right about is I gave you the largest tax cut in history. I also gave you the largest
gave
regulation
rich people
cut in
the largest
history.
tax
That's why
cut.
we had all the jobs. And the jobs went down, and then they bounced back, and he's taking credit for bounce back jobs. You can't do that. He also said he inherited 9% inflation. No, he inherited almost no inflation, and it stayed that way for 14 months. And then it blew up under his leadership because they spent money like a bunch of people that didn't know what they were doing. And they don't know what they were doing. It was the worst, probably the worst administration in history. There's never been. And as far as Afghanistan is concerned, I was getting out of Afghanistan, but we were getting out with dignity, with strength.
I think talks with hands
power.
is supposed to be the accordion
He got
thing, but I'll
out.
just
It
give
was
him
the
that.
most embarrassing day in the history of our country's life.
President Trump, over the last 8 years, under both of your administrations, the national
Thanks for
debt soared to record
resubscribing,
highs.
Tired
And according
Knot.
to a new nonpartisan analysis, President Trump, your administration approved $8.4 trillion in new debt, while so far, President Biden, you've approved $4.3 trillion in new debt. So former President
Big
Trump,
part of that
many
new
the
debt was that
cuts
tax cut that
you
he
signed
mentioned.
into law are set to expire next year. You want to extend them and go even further, you say. With the U.S. facing trillion-dollar deficits and record debt, why should top earners and corporations pay even less in taxes than they do now?
Because the tax cut spurred the greatest economy that we've ever seen just prior to COVID. And even after COVID, it was so strong that we were able to get through COVID much better than just about any other country. But we spurred, that tax spurred. Now,
with
when
much
we
higher
cut
death
the
rate than other
taxes,
countries.
As an example, the corporate tax was cut down to 21% from 39%, plus beyond that. We took in more revenue with much less tax, and companies were bringing back trillions of dollars back into our country. The country was going like never before, and we were ready to start paying down debt. We were ready to start using the liquid gold right under our feet.
Trump's
the oil
blood
and
pressure's
gas right
rising.
under
He's
our
starting to
feet.
ramble again.
We were going to have something
I'm
that
surprised he's
nobody
been this
else has
coherent
had.
this
We got
long.
hit with COVID. We did a lot to fix it. I gave him an unbelievable situation with all of the therapeutics and all of the things that we came up with.
Side eye
gave
from
him
Biden
something
there.
great. Remember, more people died under his administration, even though we had largely fixed it. More people died under his administration than our administration, and we were right in the middle of it, something which a lot of people don't like to talk about. But he had far more people dying in his administration. He did the mandate.
I don't know
which is
the
a
absolute
disaster,
numbers on that one, but
mandating it. The vaccine went out. He did a mandate on the vaccine, which is the thing that people most objected to about the vaccine. And he did a very poor job, just a very poor job. And I will tell you, not only poor there, but throughout the entire world, we're no longer respected as a country. They don't respect our leadership. They don't respect the United States anymore.
Tell you what,
We're
as
like
someone
a
who's from
third world
outside the
nation
country,
between
I don't
weaponization
respect
of his
the states
election,
when Trump's
trying to
leading
go
them.
after his political opponent. All of the things he's done, we've become like a third world nation, and it's a shame. The damage he's done to our country, and I'd love to ask him, and will, why he allowed millions of people to come in here from prisons, jails, and mental institutions to come into our country and destroy our country.
President Trump, we will get to immigration
That's a QAnon
later
dog
in
whistle.
This block. President Biden, I want to give you an opportunity to
open
respond
borders.
to this question about the national debt.
He had the largest national debt of any president in a 4-year period, number one. Number two, That $2 trillion tax cut benefited the very wealthy. What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. I mean, billionaires in America.
I was going to say.
And what's happening? They're in a situation where they, in fact, pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just paid 24%, 25%, either one of those numbers, they'd raise $500 billion, I should say, in a 10-year period. We'd be able to wipe out his debt.
He's
We'd be
getting
able to
some
help
zeros
make sure
mixed
that
up.
all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID. Excuse me, with dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
We finally beat Medicare.
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare because all of these people are coming in. They're putting them on Medicare. They're putting them on Social Security. They're going to destroy Social Security. This man is going to single-handedly
Undocumented
destroy
immigrants
Social Security. These
pay more in
millions and millions
taxes
of people coming
than
in,
they
they're
receive in
trying to
benefits
put
because
them
they
on
don't
Social
actually get any of
Security.
those
He will
benefits.
wipe out Social Security. He will wipe out Medicare. So he was right.
Trump's
in the way
already
he
said he's
finished
going to.
that sentence, and it's a shame. What's happened to
Trump
our country
actually said he was
in the
going to cut
last 4
Medicare, didn't he?
years is not to be believed. Foreign countries, I'm friends with a lot of people. They cannot believe
Oh,
what
yeah, there we
happened
go.
to
It's
the
already been
United
pointed out.
States
Trump
of
wanted to get rid
America.
of it.
We're no longer respected. They don't like us. We give them everything they want, and they think we're stupid. They think we're very stupid people. What we're doing for other countries,
I do think he's a
and
very
they
stupid
do nothing
people.
for us. What this man has done is absolutely criminal.
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
This is the first presidential election since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. This morning, the court ruled on yet another abortion case, temporarily allowing emergency abortions to continue in Idaho, despite that state's restrictive ban. Former President Trump, you take credit for the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, which returned the issue of abortion to the states.
Correct.
However, the federal government still plays a role in whether or not women have access to abortion pills. They're used in about 2/3 of all abortions. As president, would you block abortion medication?
First of all, the Supreme Court just approved the abortion pill, and I agree with
What?
their decision to have done that. And I
No,
will
they
not
didn't
block it.
approve of it. They
And
just didn't
if you
take the
look
case.
at this whole question that you're asking, complex, but not really complex. 51 years ago, you had Roe v. Wade, and everybody wanted to get it back to the states. Everybody, without exception.
No.
Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives.
No, like 80% of
Everybody
people
wanted
wanted
back,
it.
Religious
No.
leaders. And what
80%
I did
people
is
want
I
it
put
to
three
stay the
great
way it
Supreme
was.
Court justices on the court, and they happened to vote in favor of killing Roe v. Wade and moving it back to the states. This is something that everybody wanted. Now, 10 years ago or so, they started talking about how many weeks and how many this, getting into other things. But every legal scholar throughout the world, the most respected, wanted it brought back to the states. I did that.
No.
Now the states are working it
Every
out. If you
legal
look
scholar.
at
What-
Ohio,
who-
it was a
what the fu-
decision that
name a
was-
legal
it was
scholar.
an end result that was
Name
a little
one.
bit more liberal than you would have thought. Kansas, I would say the same thing. Texas is different. Florida is different. But they're all making their own decisions right now.
Yeah, and then
right
anytime
now,
it gets
the
voted on, it
states control
loses.
That's the vote of the people.
No, the vote of the
Like
people
Ronald
is it
Reagan, I
loses when
believe
it's
in
actually
the
put to a vote.
exceptions. I am a person that believes. And frankly, I think it's important to believe in the exceptions. Some people, you have to follow your heart. Some people don't believe in that. But I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. I think it's very important.
Okay,
Some
and who
people
gets to
don't.
decide
Follow your
that?
heart, but
I
you
would
have
say
to get elected
doctors,
also.
not
And
legislators.
because that
So,
has
like,
to
just
do
leave
with
it
other
between
things. You got to get
doctor and
elected.
the woman.
The problem they have is they're radical because they will take the life of a child in the 8th
Oh my
month, the
God,
9th
no,
month, and
don't,
even after
no.
birth. After birth, if you look at the
No,
former
that's not
governor of
true.
Virginia, he was willing to do this. He said, "We'll put the baby aside and we'll
my
determine
God.
what we do with the baby," meaning we'll
He's
kill
got.
the baby.
It's just his old shtick.
What happened is we brought it back to the states, and the country is now coming together on this issue. It's been a great thing.
Thank you. President
Oh.
Biden?
It's been a terrible thing.
Yeah, we've got Naramdapa saying radical.
The fact is that the vast
Sure.
majority of constitutional scholars supported Roe when it was decided.
Mm-hmm.
Supported Roe.
Still do.
And that's this idea that they're all against it is just ridiculous. And this is the guy who says the state should be able to have it. We're in a state where in 6 weeks You don't even know whether you're pregnant or not, but you cannot see a doctor and have him decide on what your circumstances are, whether you need help. The idea that
how do you
states are
perform
able
an
to do
abortion
this is a
after
little
the
like
baby's
saying,
out of the womb?
We're going to turn civil rights
Yeah, I'd like to know
back
that
states.
for a
Let
friend.
each state have a different rule. Look, there's so many young women who have been, including a young woman who just was murdered, and he went to the funeral. The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in, they talk about that. But here's the deal: there's a lot of young women are being raped by their in-laws, by their spouses, brothers and sisters, it's just ridiculous, and they can do nothing about it. And they try to arrest them when they cross state lines.
Thank you.
There have been many young women murdered by the same people he allows to come across our border. We have a border that's the most dangerous place anywhere in the world, considered the most dangerous place anywhere in the world. And he opened it up, and these killers are coming into our country, and they are raping and killing women. And it's a terrible thing. As far as the abortion is concerned, it is now back with the states. The states are voting. In many cases, it's frankly a very liberal decision. In many cases, it's the opposite. But they're voting, and it's bringing it back to the vote of the people, which is what everybody wanted, including the founders, if they knew about this issue, which, frankly, they didn't. But they would have. Everybody wanted brought back.
Who cares what the
Ronald
founders
Reagan
wanted?
wanted it brought back. He wasn't able to get it. Everybody wanted it brought back, and many presidents.
If everybody
have
wanted it
tried
brought
to
back,
get
it would have
back.
just brought
I was the
back,
one to
because
do it.
that's
And
how
again,
democracy
this gives it
works.
the vote of the people, and that's where they wanted it. Every legal scholar wanted it that way.
Staying on the topic of abortion, President Biden, 7 states, I'll let you do that. This is the same topic. 7 states have no legal restrictions on how far into a pregnancy a woman can obtain an abortion. Do you support any legal limits on how late a woman should be able to terminate a pregnancy?
I supported Roe v. Wade, which had 3 trimesters. The first time is between the woman and the doctor. Second time is between the doctor and an extreme situation. The third time is between the doctor, between the woman and the state. The idea that the politicians, that the founders wanted the politicians to be the ones making decisions about women's health is ridiculous. That's the last. No politician should be making that
they
decision.
didn't want women to
doctor
vote,
should
so
be
that's
making
a
that
bit of a
decision.
stretch.
That's how it should be run. That's what you're going to do. And if I'm elected, I'm going to restore Roe v. Wade.
So that means he can take the life of the baby in the 9th month and even after birth, because some
That's
states
not what Roe
Democrat
versus
run,
Wade means.
take it after birth. Again, the former governor
Roe
of
versus
Virginia
Wade leaves
put the
that
baby
part to
down,
the
then we
states, like
decide
Trump
what to
said he
do with it.
wanted.
So he's willing to, as we say, rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month and kill the baby. Nobody wants that to happen. Democrat or
If nobody wants that to
Republican,
happen, then
nobody wants it
nobody's
to
getting
happen.
those abortions, so don't worry about it.
That is simply not true. The Roe v. Wade does not provide for that. That's not the circumstance. Only if a woman's life is in danger, she's going to die. That's the only circumstance in which that can happen. But we are not for late-term abortion, period. Period, period.
Under Roe v. Wade, you have late-term abortion. You can do whatever you want, depending on the state.
He doesn't
You
know
can
what
do
Roe
whatever
versus
you
Wade
want.
is.
We don't think that's a good thing. We think
He
it's
thinks
a
Roe
radical
versus
thing.
Wade is just
we
all
think
abortions.
The Democrats are the radicals, not the Republicans.
For 51 years, that was the law. 51 years, constitutional
What happened to the
scholarship said
microphone
it was the
muting?
right way to go. 51 years, and it was
I mean,
taken away because this
is
guy
actually a
with
decent
very
back and
conservative
forth.
members on the Supreme Court. He takes credit for taking it away. What's he going to do? What's he going to do, in fact, if the MAGA Republicans, he gets elected, and the MAGA Republicans control the Congress, and they pass a universal ban on abortion, period, across the board at 6 weeks or 7 or 8 or 10 weeks, something very, very conservative. Is he going to sign that bill? I'll veto it. He'll sign it.
Thank you.
Let's turn now to the issue of immigration and border security. President Biden, a record
Tried to
number
tackle
of
his microphone
migrants
muted.
have
That's on
illegally
his one.
crossed the southern border on your watch. Overwhelming border states
Where
and
is it?
overburdening cities such as New York and Chicago, and in some cases causing real safety and security
Thanks.
concerns. Given that, why should voters trust you to solve this crisis?
Because we worked very hard to get a
Ripping the baby
bipartisan
out of the
agreement that
womb
not
in 9
only
months is called a
changed
C-section.
all of that. It made sure that we are in a situation where you had no circumstance where they could come across the border with the number of border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers. Significantly, by the way, the Border Patrol endorsed my position. In addition to that, we found ourselves in a situation where, when he was president, he was separating babies from their mothers, putting them in cages, making sure the families were separated. That's not the right way to go. What I've done since I've changed the law, what's happened? I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where
now it's still inhumane.
40% fewer people coming
but it's slightly
across
less
the border
inhumane.
legally. That's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we can do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look, we had the safest border in the history of our country. The border, all he had to do was leave it. All he had to do was leave it. He decided to open up our border, open up our country to people that are from prisons, people that are from mental institutions, insane asylum.
Where is he getting it?
We have the
Like,
largest
he's
number
just
of
making it
terrorists
up,
coming
but,
into
like,
our country right now. All terrorists, all over the world, not just in South America, all over the world. They come from the Middle East, everywhere. All over the world, they're pouring in.
Where are
This
these
guy
terrorists pouring
just
in?
left it open. And he didn't need legislation because I didn't have
The
legislation.
only
I
terrorist
said,
attacks that have
close
been
the border.
happening
We
in
had
the States have been
safest
from
border
white
in
Christian
history.
nationalists
In that
going on
final
shooting
couple of months
sprees.
of my presidency, we had, according to Border Patrol, who is great, and by the way, who endorsed me for president, but I won't say that, but they endorsed me for president.
I won't say the thing
Brandon,
that I just
speak
said.
to him.
Fuck
But
off.
look, we had the safest border in history. Now we have the worst border in history. There's never been anything like it. And people are dying all over the place, including the people that are coming up in
Thank you,
caravans.
President Trump. President Biden?
The only terrorist who's done anything crossing the border is one who came along and killed three, under his administration, killed an Al-Qaeda person come in his administration, killed three American soldiers. That's the only terrorist that's there. I'm not saying that no terrorist ever got through, but the idea they're emptying their prisons, we're welcoming these people, that's simply not true. There's no data to support what he said. Once again, he's exaggerating, he's lying.
President Trump, staying on the topic of immigration, you've said that you're going to carry out, quote, the largest domestic deportation operation in American history, unquote. Does that mean that you will deport every undocumented immigrant in America, including those who have jobs, including those whose spouses are citizens, and including those who have lived here for decades? And if so, how will you do it?
Just 1 second. He said we killed 3 people. The people we killed are al-Baghdadi and Soleimani, the 2 greatest terrorists, biggest terrorists anywhere in the world. And it had a huge impact on everything, not just border, on everything. He's the one that killed people with the bad water, including hundreds of thousands of people dying and also killing our citizens when they come in. We are living right now in a rat's nest. They're killing our people in New York, in California, in every
Baghdadi, yeah,
state
that is what
in
he
the
said.
union,
That's what I
because
heard.
we don't have borders anymore. Every state is now a border. And because of his ridiculous, insane, and very stupid policies, people are coming in and they're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen. We call it migrant crime. I call it Biden migrant crime. They're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen before.
Fucking
and
idiot.
You're reading it like these 3 incredible young girls over the last few days. One of them, I just spoke to the mother, and they just had the funeral for this girl, 12 years old. This is horrible what's taken place. What's taken place in our
that is
country,
horrible, but using the
we're
death for
literally
political points
an
is even worse.
uncivilized country
Like,
now. He doesn't want it to be. He just
more
doesn't know.
murders than
He
that
opened the
happen
borders.
that
Nobody's
aren't
ever seen anything like. And we
done
have
by
to get a lot
migrants.
of these
So,
people
like,
out, and we have to get them out fast.
fuck off.
Because they're going to destroy our country. Just take a look at where they're living. They're living in luxury hotels in
they're
New York
not.
City and other places. Our veterans are on the street. They're dying because he doesn't care about our veterans.
He doesn't
doesn't
do
care.
anything
He doesn't
about the
like
veterans.
the military at all. And he doesn't care about our veterans. Nobody been worse. I had the highest approval rating for veterans taking care of the VA. He has the worst. He's gotten rid of all the things that I approved. Choice that I got through Congress, all of the different things I approved, they abandoned. We had by far the highest, and now it's down in less than half because he's done all these great things that we did. And I think he did it just because I approved it, which is crazy. But he has killed so many people at our border.
if he was going to
by
do that, the
allowing
border would be
all of these
actually a lot
people to
better
come
than it
in.
is.
And
President
it's a
Biden?
very sad day in America.
Mute
President
him.
Biden, you have the mic.
Every single thing he said is a lie. Every single one. For example, veterans are a hell of a lot better off since I passed the PACT Act. 1 million of them now have insurance, and their families have it. Their families have it because what happened, whether it was Agent Orange or burn pits, they're all being covered now. And his group opposed that. We're also in a situation where we have great respect for veterans. My son spent a year in Iraq, living next to one of those burn pits, came back with stage 4 glioblastoma. I was recently in France for D-Day, and I spoke all about those
Trump's
heroes
not allowed in
that died.
France because he's a convicted
I went to the
felon.
World War I cemetery he refused to go to. He was standing with his 4-star general, and he told me, he said, I don't want to go in there because they're a bunch of losers and suckers. My son was not a loser, was not a sucker. You're the sucker. You're the loser.
President Trump?
First of all, that was a made-up quote, suckers and losers. They made it up. It was in a third-rate magazine that's failing, like many of these magazines. He made that up.
Yeah,
he put it in commercials. We've notified him. We had 19 people that said I didn't say it. And think of this. Who would say I'm at a cemetery or I'm talking about our veterans? Because nobody's taken better care. I'm so glad this came up, and he brought it up. There's nobody that's taken better care of our soldiers than I have.
I mean, he's literally on
Think
tape
that
saying,
would,
I
in front of
prefer
generals and others say suckers.
I
and
prefer
losers.
soldiers
We
who
have
don't
19
get
people
captured
that
or whatever
said
it was.
It was never said
Like,
by
that
me.
one's on tape.
It was made up by him, just like Russia was made up, just like the 51 intelligence agents are made up. Just like the new thing with the 16 economists.
Oh, he said
are
Russia, Russia,
talking.
Russia.
It's the same thing. 51 intelligence agents said that the laptop was Russia disinformation. It wasn't. That came from his son.
Where's the live
Hunter.
fact check? I think
It
it's at
wasn't Russia
CNN.com.
disinformation. He made up the suckers and losers, so he should apologize to me right now.
4-star general standing to your side who was on your staff who said you said it, period. That's number one. And number two, the idea that I have to apologize to you for anything along the line. We've done more for veterans than any president has in American history. And they now are in their family. The only sacred obligation we have as a country is to care for our veterans when they come home and their families and equip them when they go to war. That's what we're doing. That's what the VA is doing now. They're doing more for veterans than ever before in our history.
All right, thank you so much.
Let's move to the topic of foreign policy. I want to begin with Russia's war against Ukraine, which is now in its 3rd year. Former President Trump, Russian President Vladimir Putin says he'll only end this war if Russia keeps the Ukrainian territory it has already claimed and Ukraine abandons its bid to join NATO. Are Putin's terms acceptable to you?
First of all, our veterans and our soldiers can't stand this guy. They can't stand him. They
That's
think
not
he's
the question.
worst commander-in-chief, if that's what you call him, that we've ever had. They can't stand him.
Wasn't
So
there a
let's get
clip
that
of
straight.
Trump
And they like me more than just about any of
having
them.
like one of the
And that's
either
based on
police
every
officers or
single bit of
military
information.
guys like
As far
refused to
as
shake his hand when he
Russia
went
and
by?
Ukraine, if we had a real president, the president that knew, that was respected by Putin, he would have never invaded Ukraine.
What do you want,
A
Steph?
lot of people are dead right now, much more than people know. You know, they talk about numbers. You can double those numbers.
Oh,
maybe
laptop,
triple those
that's
numbers.
Hunter?
He did nothing to stop it. In fact, I
missed
think
that.
he encouraged Russia from going in. I'll tell you what happened. He was so bad with Afghanistan. It was such a horrible embarrassment, most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, that when Putin watched that and he saw the incompetence, that he should have fired those generals, like I fired the one that you mentioned. And so he's got no love lost. But he should have fired those generals. No general got fired for the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, Afghanistan, where we left billions of dollars of equipment behind. We lost 13 beautiful soldiers, and 38 soldiers were obliterated. And by the way, we left people behind, too. We left
So
American
if I recall
citizens
correctly,
behind. When Putin saw that, he
didn't
said,
Biden just
"You know
continue
what?
on
I
with
think we're gonna
the
go in and
Afghanistan plan
maybe
that
take
Trump put in
my-
place
this
when
was
he
his
was president?"
dream. I talked to him about it, his dream. The difference is he never would have invaded Ukraine. Never. Just like Israel would have never been invaded in a million years by Hamas. You know why? Because Iran was broke with me. I wouldn't let anybody do business with them. They ran out of money. They were
What
broke.
is he
They had
even
no
talking
money for
about right now?
Hamas.
Like,
they had no
what
money
does that
for
have to do with
anything.
Ukraine?
No money for terror. That's why you had no terror at all during my administration. This place, the whole world is blowing up under him.
President Biden?
I've never heard so much malarkey in my whole life. Look, the
Yeah,
fact of the
malarkey.
matter is that we're in a situation where, let's take the last point first. Iran attacked American troops, caused brain damage for a number of these troops, and he did nothing about it. Recently, not when he was president, they attacked. He said they're just having headaches. That's all it is. He didn't do a thing when the attack took place, number one. Number two, we got over 100,000 Americans and others out of Afghanistan during that airlift. Number three, we found ourselves in a situation where if you take a look at what Trump did in Ukraine, this guy told Trump, do whatever you want and do whatever you want. And that's exactly what Trump did to Putin, encourage him, do whatever you want. And he went in. And listen to what he said when he went in. He was going to take Kyiv in 5 days, remember? Because it's part of the old Soviet Union. That's what he wanted to reestablish, Kyiv. And he, in fact, didn't do it at all. He wasn't able to get it done. And they've lost thousands and thousands of troops, 500,000 troops.
President Trump,
I
as I
never
come back
said
to you
that.
for 1 minute, I just want to go back to
No,
my
I never said
original
that.
question, which
Guarantee you
is,
did.
are Putin's terms acceptable to you? Keeping the
There we go.
territory in Ukraine.
Acceptable. No, they're not acceptable. But look, this is a war that never should have started. If we had a leader in this war, he led everybody along. He's given $200 billion now or more to Ukraine. He's given $200 billion.
He's saying
that's a lot
Putin's
of money.
terms
I
are
don't
not
think there's ever been
not
anything
acceptable.
like it. Every time that
But yeah, we should
Zelensky
just
comes
roll
to
over.
this
and-
country, he walks away with $60 billion. He's the greatest salesman ever. And I'm not knocking him. I'm not knocking anything. I'm only saying the money that we're spending on this war.
It's not
and
money.
we
It's
shouldn't be spending. It should
stuff.
have never happened.
You're giving them
I will
tanks
have
and
that
shit
war
that
settled
the United
between
States is not
Putin
using,
and
like old
Zelensky
stuff that they're
as
not using.
President-elect,
It's
before
not
I take
cash.
office on January 20th, I'll have that war settled. People being killed so needlessly, so stupidly, and I will get it settled, and I'll get it settled fast before I take office.
President Biden, you have a minute.
The fact is that Putin is a war criminal. He's killed thousands and thousands of people. And he has made one thing clear. He wants to reestablish what was part of the Soviet Empire, not just a piece. He wants all of Ukraine. That's what he wants. And then do you think he'll stop there? Do you think he'll stop when if he takes Ukraine? What do you think happens to Poland? What do you think of Belarus? What do you think happens to those NATO countries? And so if you want a war, you ought to find out what he's going to do, because if in fact he does what he says and walks away, and by the way, all that money we give Ukraine are from weapons we make here in the United States. We give them the weapons, not the money at this point. And our NATO allies have produced as much funding for Ukraine as we have. That's why we're strong.
Thank you. Moving on to the Middle East. In October, Hamas attacked Israel, killing more than 1,000 people and taking hundreds of hostages. Among those held and thought to still be alive are 5 Americans. Israel's response has killed thousands of Palestinians and created a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. President Biden, you've put forward a proposal to resolve this conflict. But so far, Hamas has not released the remaining hostages, and Israel is continuing its military offensive in Gaza. So what additional leverage
Israel
will
can fuck
you
off.
use to get Hamas,
So can
and
Hamas.
Israel
They can both fuck off.
to end the war? You have 2 minutes.
Number one, everyone from the United Nations Security Council straight through to the G7 to the Israelis and Netanyahu himself have endorsed the plan I put forward. Which has 3 stages to it. The first stage is trade the hostages for a ceasefire. Second phase is a ceasefire with additional conditions. The third phase is the end of the war. The only one who wants the war to continue is Hamas. Number one, they're the only ones standing out. We're still pushing hard to get them to accept. In the meantime, what's happening in Israel? We're finding that the only thing I've denied Israel was 2,000-pound bombs. They don't work very well in populated areas. They kill a lot of innocent people. We're providing Israel with all the weapons they need and when they need them. And by the way, I'm the guy that organized the world against Iran when they had a full-blown intercontinental ballistic missile attack on Israel. No one was hurt. One Israeli was accidentally killed. And
no one was hurt because that was Iran just shaking their stick.
Israel. We are the
they didn't actually want to hurt anyone because they
support for Israel of anyone in the world. And so they're 2 different things. Hamas cannot be allowed to be continued. We continue to send our experts and our intelligence people as to how they can get Hamas like we did bin Laden. You don't have to do it.
Okay, Biden sucks on Israel.
Greatly weakened.
We can all agree on that, I think.
Weakened, and they
but Trump would be way worse.
Be eliminated. but you've got to be careful for what using certain weapons among population centers.
Just going back to Ukraine for 1 second. We have an ocean separating us. The European nations together.
Why does he go back to Ukraine?
Have spent $100 billion or maybe more than that, less than us. Why doesn't he call them and say, you got to put up your money like I did with NATO? I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. The Secretary General of NATO said Trump did the most incredible job I've ever seen. They wouldn't have any. They were going out of business. We were
Trump,
spending
talk
almost
about Israel.
100% of the money was paid by us. He didn't do that. He's getting all. You got to ask these people to put up the money. We're over $100 billion more spent, and it has a bigger impact on them.
I think
Because of location,
this is actually a
because we
smart
have an ocean in
move on
between.
Trump's part.
You got to ask him as far as
even if it's accidental.
Israel and Hamas. Israel's the one that wants to go. He said the only one that wants to keep going is Hamas. Actually, Israel is the one, and you should let him go and let him finish the job. He doesn't want to do it. He's become like a Palestinian.
Okay. Yeah, no.
But they don't like him because he's a very
He didn't
bad
do the smart
Palestinian.
thing.
He's a weak one.
He didn't do the smart thing. He should have just left that
I've never
alone.
heard so much foolishness. This is a guy who wants to get out of NATO. Are you going to stay in NATO? He's going to pull out of NATO. The idea that we have, our strength lies in our alliances as well. It may be a big ocean, but we're ever able to avoid a war in Europe, a major war in Europe? What happens if, in fact, you have Putin continue to go into NATO? We have an Article 5 agreement. Attack on one is attack on all. You want to start the nuclear war he keeps talking about, go ahead. Let Putin go in and control Ukraine and then move on to Poland and other places. You see what happens then. He has no idea what the hell he's talking about. And by the way, I got 50 other nations around the world to support Ukraine, including Japan.
Thank you, Anonymous, for
South
that
Korea,
subscription
because
gift.
they understand that this kind of dislocation has a serious threat to the whole world peace. No major war in Europe has ever been able to be contained just to Europe.
President Trump, just to follow up,
Thank you to
would you
Steve
support the
with Hack.
creation of an independent Palestinian state in order to achieve peace in the region?
I'd have to see, but before we do that, the problem
No,
we have
he just
is
said that
they
he wanted
spend all
Israel
the
to
money.
finish them.
So they kill
That's
us on
not I
trade.
have to see.
Made great trade deals
That's
with the European nations.
Oh, fuck off.
Because if you add them up, they're about the same size economically. Their economy is about the same size as the United States. And they were no cars, they don't want anything that we have. But we're supposed to take their cars, their food, their everything, their agriculture. I changed that. But the
fuck
big
is he
thing
even
I
talking
changed is
about?
they don't want to pay. And the only reason that he can play games with NATO is because I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. I said, and he's right about this, I said, no, I'm not going to support NATO if you don't pay. They asked me that question. Would you guard us
Short-circuit again,
against
guys?
Russia?
Are we talking about Trump
At a
or
very
Biden? Because
secret
Biden's
meeting
short-circuited
with
a lot.
the 28 states at that time, nations at that time. And they said, no, if you don't pay, I won't do that. And you know what happened?
Trump is going off
Billions
on
and
tangents, but
billions
I don't
of
think he's
dollars
really
came
short-circuiting.
flowing in the next day and the next months. But now we're in the
How do we
same
get on this
position.
topic? I
We're
don't know.
paying everybody's
Thank you.
bills.
Nobody
Let's
knows.
turn to the issue of democracy. Former President Trump, I want to ask
here we
you
go,
about
here we go.
January 6, 2021. After you rallied your supporters that day, some of them stormed the Capitol to stop the constitutionally mandated counting of electoral votes. As president, you swore an oath to, quote, preserve, protect, and defend, unquote, the Constitution. What do you say to voters who believe that you violated that oath through your actions and inaction on January 6th and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I don't think too many believe that. And let me tell you about January 6th. On January
Peaceful?
6th,
Is it peaceful?
we had a great border. Nobody coming through, very few. On January 6th, we were energy independent. On January 6th, we had the
No, you
lowest
weren't.
taxes ever. We had
Fuck
the lowest
you. No, you
regulations
weren't.
ever. On
Nope.
January 6th, we were respected all over the world.
Nope.
All over the world.
Oh,
we were
fuck no,
respected.
no,
And then
no.
he comes in, and we're now laughed at. We're like a bunch of stupid people.
Absolutely not.
What happened to the United
Reverse.
States'
Uno reverse.
reputation under this man's leadership is horrible, including weaponization.
You remember when the
which I'm
G7
sure
leaders
at
were
some point
literally
we'll be
laughing at
talking
Trump?
about, where he goes after his political opponent because he can't beat him fair and square.
You have 80 seconds left. My question was, what do you say to those voters who believe that you violated your constitutional oath through your actions and inaction on January 6, 2021, and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I didn't say that to anybody. I said peacefully and patriotically. And Nancy Pelosi,
Peaceful.
if you just watched the news from 2 days ago, on tape to her daughter, who's a documentary filmmaker, they say.
Filmmaker?
Saying,
Okay, that's a
"Oh,
short
no,
circuit.
it's my
I'll call that a short
responsibility.
circuit.
I was responsible for this because I offered her 10,000 soldiers or National Guard, and she turned them down. And the mayor of...
No, you didn't.
In writing, by the way, the mayor, in writing, turned it down. The mayor of D.C. They turned it down.
Absolutely
I offered
not.
10,000 because
that is not what
I
happened.
could see. I had virtually nothing to do. They asked me to go make a speech. I could see what was happening. Everybody was saying they're going to be there on January 6th. They're going to be there. And I said, you know what? There's a lot of people coming. You could feel it. You could feel it too, and you could feel it. And I said, they ought to have some National Guard or whatever. And I offered it to her. And she now admits that she turned it down. And it was the same day she was, I don't know, she can't be very happy with her daughter because it made her into a liar. She said, I take full responsibility
I
for
don't
January
think that's what
6th.
happened at all.
President Biden?
Look, he encouraged those folks to go up on Capitol Hill, number one. I sat in the dining room off the Oval Office. He sat there for 3 hours watching, begging, being begged by his vice president and a number of his colleagues on the Republican side as well to do something, to call for a stop, to end it. Instead, they talked about these people being patriots and great patrons of America.
You know
In
what?
fact,
I
he
vote that they
says he'll
both have
not
an
forgive them
aneurysm
for
and
what
die
they've
right
done.
now on the
No,
stage. That would
they've
be
been
best for
convicted.
America.
He says he wants to commute their sentences and say that no. But he went to every single court in the nation. I don't know how many cases, scores of cases, including the Supreme Court, and they said, no, this guy is responsible for doing what was done. He did do a damn thing, and these people should be in jail, and they should be the ones who are being held accountable. And he wants to let them all out. And now he says if he loses again, such a whiner that he is, that it could be a bloodbath.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
What they've done to some people that are so innocent, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. What you have done, how you've destroyed the lives of so many people. When they ripped down Portland, when they ripped down many
Was Portland
other
ripped down?
cities. You go
I
to
don't remember
Minnesota,
Portland being ripped down.
Minneapolis, what they've done there with the fires all over
the city of
If I didn't bring in
the city
National
of
Guard, that city
Minnesota
would have been destroyed. When you look at all of they took over big chunks of Seattle. I was all set to bring in the National Guard. They heard that. They saw them coming, and they left.
He's talking about Black Lives Matter. He's not talking
What
about
he said about
January 6th.
This whole subject is so off. Peacefully patriotic. One other thing. The Unselect Committee, which is basically two horrible Republicans that are all gone now, out of office, and Democrats, all Democrats, they destroyed and deleted all of the information they found because they found out we were right. We were right. And they deleted and destroyed all of the information.
They deleted it because they were done with it.
To jail for that.
That was
If a Republican
standard
did
operating
that, they'd go to
procedure.
Thank you,
jail.
President Trump. President Biden, I want to give you a minute.
The only person on this stage is a convicted felon is the man I'm looking at right now. And the fact of the matter is, what he's telling you is simply not true. The fact is that there was no effort on his part.
pretty sure Pence
to
asked
stop
for the
what was
National
going
Guard.
on up in Capitol Hill. And all those people, every one of those who were convicted, deserves to be convicted. The idea that they didn't kill somebody,
serving thing
just
drawer.
went in and broke down doors, broke the windows, occupied offices, turned over desks, turned them over statues. The idea that those people are patriots? Come on. When I asked him the first two debates we had, first time around, I said, will you denounce the Proud Boys? He said, no, I'll tell them to stand by.
Stand back
The
and
idea
stand
he's
by.
refusing, will you denounce these guys? Will you denounce the people we're talking about now? Will you denounce the people who attacked us?
Denounce the Proud Boys, Trump.
What are you going to do?
I'm going to give you a minute, President Trump, for a follow-up question I have. After a jury convicted you of 34 felonies last month, you said if reelected, you would, quote, have every right to go after, unquote, your political opponents. You just talked about members of the Select Committee on January 6th going to jail. Your main political opponent is standing on stage with you tonight. Can you clarify exactly what it means about you feeling you have every right to go after your political opponents?
Well, I said my retribution is going to be success. We're going to make this country successful again, because right now it's a failing nation. My retribution is going to be success. But when he talks about a convicted felon, his son is a convicted felon at a very
Hunter
high
Biden.
level. His son is convicted, going to be convicted
well, almost got a
probably numerous
bingo.
other times. Should have been convicted before, but his Justice Department let the statute of limitations lapse on the most important things.
That
But
was
he
a
could be
Trump-appointed,
convicted felon as soon as he gets out of
attorney
office. Joe
that
could be
did
a
that,
convicted
actually.
felon with all of the things that he's done. He's done horrible things. All of the death caused at the border, telling the Ukrainian people that we're going to want $1 billion or you change the prosecutor. Otherwise, you're not getting $1 billion. If I ever said that, that's quid pro quo. That we're not going to do anything. We're not going to give you $1 billion unless you change your prosecutor having to do with the son. This man is a criminal. This man,
Prosecutor
you're
had
lucky.
nothing to do
You're
with his
lucky.
son,
I did
and
nothing wrong.
literally every
We'd have a
country
system that
in the world was
rigged
calling
and
for that
disgusting. I did nothing wrong.
prosecutor
Thank you,
to
President Trump. President Biden, you have said,
be
I'm coming
fired.
right to you, sir. You want to respond? Go ahead. I'll give you a minute to respond.
The idea that I did anything wrong relative to what you're talking about is outrageous. It's simply a lie, number one. Number two, the idea that you have a right to seek retribution against any American just because you're president is wrong. It's simply wrong. No president's ever spoken like that before. No president in our history has spoken like that before. Number three, the crimes that you are still charged with, and think of all the civil penalties you have. How many billions of dollars do you owe in civil penalties for molesting a woman in public, for doing a whole range of things, of having sex with a porn star on the night while your wife was pregnant? I mean, what are you talking about? You have the morals of an alley cat.
Give you a minute, sir.
That's an
I
insult
didn't
to
have
alley
sex with
cats.
a porn star, number one. Number two, that was a case that was started and
we got a
moved.
hat.
They moved a high-ranking official, a DOJ, into the Manhattan DA's office to start that case. That case is going to be
This is
appealed. to
our
one.
debate.
We had a very terrible judge, a horrible judge, Democrat. The prosecutor were all high-ranking Democrats, appointed people, and both the civil and the criminal. He basically went after his political opponent because he thought it was going to damage me. But when the public found out about these cases, because they understand it better than he does, he has no idea what these cases are. But
He had
when
nothing to do with
when
those
they found
cases.
out about these cases, you know what they did? My poll numbers went up, way up. You know that because you're reporting it. And we took in more money in the last 2 weeks than we've ever taken in the history of any campaign. I don't think any campaign has ever taken. Hundreds of millions of dollars came pouring in because the public
It was
knows it's
141
a scam,
million.
and
It's
it's
not
a
pu-
guy
it's
that's
not
after
plural
his
yet.
political opponent because he can't win fair and square.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, quote, Donald Trump and his MAGA Republicans are determined to destroy American democracy. Do you believe that the tens of millions of Americans who are likely to vote for President Trump will be voting against American democracy?
The more they know about what he's done, yes. The more they know about what he's done. And there's a lot more coming. He's got a lot of cases down the road coming around. He's got a whole range of issues he has to face. I don't know what the juries will do, but I do know he has a real problem. And so the fact that, could you ever think you heard any president say that I'm going to seek retribution? Do you ever hear any president say that I thought Hitler had some good ideas? What got me involved to run in the first place after my son had died, I decided in Iraq, because of Iraq, I said I wasn't going to run again until I saw what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. People coming out of the woods carrying swastikas on torches, and singing the same anti-Semitic bile they sang when back in Germany. And the young woman got killed. They spoke to the mother, and they asked him, they said, what do you think of those people? The ones who got killed, the one who tried to stop it, and the ones, he said, I think they're fine people on both sides. What American president would ever say Nazis coming out of fields carrying torches, singing the same anti-Semitic bile, carrying swastikas were fine people? This is the guy who says Hitler's done some good things.
I don't think they actually had
I'd like to know what
swastikas
they
at that
are.
rally, but
Good
they
things
were
Hitler's
Nazis.
done. That's what he said. This guy has no sense of American democracy.
President Trump.
Jake, both of you know that story has been totally wiped out because when you see the sentence, it said 100% exoneration on that. So he just keeps it going. He says he ran because of Charlottesville. He didn't run because of Charlottesville. He ran because it was his last chance. He's not equipped to be president. You know it, and I know it. It's ridiculous. We have a debate. We're trying to justify his presidency. His presidency is, without question, the worst president, the worst presidency in the history of our country. We shouldn't be having a debate about it. There's nothing to debate. He made up the Charlottesville story, and you'll see it's debunked all over the place. Every anchor has debunked it.
It's on
every
video.
reasonable anchor
It's on fucking
has
video,
debunked
buddy.
it. And just the other day it came out where it was fully debunked.
He's talking about the
It's
Snopes
a
article.
nonsense story.
It's not
He
fully
knows that, and
debunked.
he didn't run because of Charlottesville.
It was
He
like,
used that as an
technically, he
excuse to
didn't
run.
actually say Nazis
President Biden?
are fine
Debunked.
people.
It happened. All you have to do is listen to what was said at the time. And the idea that somehow that's the only reason I ran. I ran because I was worried a guy like this guy could get elected. If he thought They were good people coming out of that forest, carrying those woods, carrying those torches. Then he didn't deserve to be president. Didn't deserve to be president at all. And the idea that he's talking about all this being fabricated, we saw with our own eyes. We saw what happened on January 6th. We saw the people breaking through the windows. We saw people occupying his own vice president. Look, there's a reason why 40 of his 44 top cabinet officers refused to endorse him this time. His vice president hasn't endorsed him this time. So why? Why? They know him well. They serve with him.
The people
Why
that
are they
know him
not
the best
endorsing him?
will not vote for him.
Thank you, President Biden. We're going to be right back with more from the CNN presidential debate.
Okay. So Biden's not doing very well because he's a fucking old man. Trump's an old man too, but honestly, he's more coherent than I was expecting. So yeah, I don't think we're going to get the jacked up Joe square because Joe is not jacked up tonight. He's not doing well. But like pretty much every word that has come out of Trump's mouth has been a lie. Oh yeah, it's like Trump is on crack to get through this. Yeah, probably, but like at the same time, like they were complaining about Joe Biden being on drugs or whatever to get through, like as if that's a bad thing. It was like, no, these are old men. They're going to be old men. Like, yeah, no, I'd rather have someone young in charge of like someone that's actually going to still be alive when the ramifications for all these climate change things start happening. I'd rather someone that's still going to be alive when that's happening be in charge of things right now. But like, And somehow the old one is still the better choice. Well, they're both old as fuck. Like I said, the thing that I am rooting for is that they both have an aneurysm on stage and neither can run anymore. Like, my God, they're just... Oh, Jassa wants a Porter... I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce the name. Negussi presidency. I'm not sure who Negussi is, but Porter, absolutely. You know who Negussi is?
Well,
I know you know who Porter is. Yeah, Katie Porter. She's fucking great. Rosina Keller says, if Biden brings up water pressure, Trump will have an aneurysm. That's a prediction. Yeah, that's not going to happen, though. Yeah. I'm debating whether or not to take the COVID shutdowns mentioned square, because like he did talk a lot about the COVID things. I don't think he was talking more about the mandates than the shutdowns, though. So, which is weird because like his whole thing was like, oh yeah, I got the vaccine to you faster than anyone could have because of Operation Warp Speed. Sirs for president. Is he old enough for president yet? I think it's 35, isn't it? Is Sirs 35? Is he an old man? I know he's around my age, but he is younger, but I'm not sure how much younger. Sirs is 30 or 31, I think. Yeah, that sounds about right. But whatever. The important thing about Sirs tonight is that he pulled out because he doesn't like being pregnant. How old am I? I'm 37. Why is the minimum 35? Because the founding fathers, in their infinite wisdom, decided that you had to be a certain age to be president, but there was no upper limit. Because fuck all the young people, I guess.
Welcome back to the
looks
CNN
like we're back.
presidential debate live from Georgia. Let's talk about persistent challenges you both faced in your first terms and you'd certainly face again in a second term. President Biden, while black unemployment dropped to a record low under your presidency, black families still earn far less than white families. Black mothers are still 3 times
racism.
more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes. And black Americans are imprisoned at 5
Trump ain't gonna
times
help
the
it.
rate of white Americans. What do you say to black voters who are disappointed that you haven't made more progress?
They acknowledge they made a lot of progress, number one. The fact of the matter is there are more small black businesses that have been started than any time in history. Number two, the wages of black unemployment is the lowest level it's been in a long, long time.
Yeah, she said
Number
that
three,
already.
we're providing housing for black Americans and dealing with the segregation that exists among these corporations that collude to keep people out of their houses. And in addition to that, we find that the impact on the choice that black families have to make relative to child care is incredibly difficult. When we did the first major piece of legislation in the past, I was able to reduce black child care costs. I cut them in half. We got to make sure we provide for child care costs. We got to make sure, because when you provide those child care protections, you increase economic growth because more people can be in the job market. So there's more to be done, considerably more to be done.
Trump ever would have.
But
Yeah,
we've
absolutely.
done a great deal so far, and I'm not letting up, and they know it.
You have 49 seconds left. What do you say to black voters who are disappointed with the progress so far?
I say I don't blame them for being disappointed. Inflation is still hurting them badly. For example, I provided for the idea that any black family, first-time home buyer, should get a $10,000 tax credit to be able to buy their first home so they can get started. I made sure that we're in a situation
that
where
redlining
all those black families
stuff.
and those
Yep.
black individuals who provided, who had to take out student
Is he
loans
actually-
that were ballooning, that if they were engaged in nursing, doctor, and
Yeah, I get where
having to
you-
do with volunteerism, if they paid their bills for 10 years on their student
Yeah,
debt,
I understand
all the
that,
rest is
Fennec, but at
forgiven
the
after
same
10
time,
years. Millions have benefited from that, and we're going to do a
given
whole
the
lot
systemic problems
for
they've
black
had
families.
over the
Thank
years.
you, President Trump.
And he caused the inflation. He's blaming inflation.
Wait, the president
And he's right,
doesn't
it's been
cause
very
inflation.
bad. He caused the inflation, and it's killing black families and Hispanic families and just about everybody. It's killing people. They can't buy groceries anymore. They can't. You look at the cost of food where it's doubled and tripled and quadrupled. They can't live. They're not living anymore. He caused this inflation. I gave him a country with
entire world
essentially no
experienced
inflation.
inflation.
It was perfect. It was so good. All he had to do is leave it alone. He destroyed it with his Green New scam and all this money that's being thrown out.
Green
the
New Deal?
window.
That wasn't
He
Biden.
caused inflation. As sure as you're
He would have
sitting
vetoed
there,
that shit.
The fact is that his big kill on the black people is the millions of people that he's allowed to come in through the border. They're taking black jobs now, and it could be 18, it could be 19, and even
Oh no, the
20
people
million
of color are taking
They're
the people of
taking
color
black
jobs.
and they're taking Hispanic jobs, and you haven't seen it yet, but you're going to see something.
What the
that's
fuck is?
gonna be
Oh,
the
he's
worst in
such
our
a fucking
history.
idiot.
Thank you. President Biden?
There was no inflation when I became president. You know why? The economy was flat on its back. 15% unemployment. He decimated the economy, absolutely decimated the economy. That's why there was no inflation at the time. There were no jobs. We provided thousands of millions of jobs for individuals who are in all communities, including minority communities. We made sure that they have health insurance. We have covered, the ACA has increased. I made sure that they're $8,000 per person in a family to get written off for health care. But this guy wants to eliminate that. They tried 50 times. He wants to get rid of the ACA again, and they're going to try again if they win. You find ourselves in a position where the idea that we're not doing any, we put more police on the street than any administration has. He wants to cut the cops. We're providing for equity and making sure people have a shot to make it. There's a lot going on, but in inflation, he caused it by his tremendous malfeasance in the way he handled the pandemic.
Thank you. Another persistent challenge is the climate crisis. 2023 was the hottest year in recorded history, and communities across the country are confronting the devastating effects of extreme heat, intensifying wildfires, stronger hurricanes, and rising sea levels. Former President Trump, you've vowed to end your opponent's climate initiatives, but will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
Well, let me just go back to what he said about the police.
Say climate hoax.
How close the police are to him. Almost every police group in the nation from every state is supporting Donald J. Trump. Almost every police group. And what he's done to the black population is horrible,
Well, I
including the
mean,
fact that for 10
ACAB,
years he
so-
called them super predators. We can't, in the 1990s, we can't forget that. Super predators was his name, and he called it to them for 10, and they've taken great offense at it, and now they see it happening. But when they see what I did for criminal justice reform and for the historically black colleges and universities, where I funded them and got them all funded, and the opportunity zones with Tim, as you know, Tim Scott was incredible. He did a great job. Great senator from
The
South
fuck is he
Carolina.
even talking about?
He came to me with the idea, and it was a great idea. It's one of the most successful economic development acts ever in the country, opportunity zones. And the biggest beneficiary are blacks. And that's why we have the best numbers with them in maybe ever. They're saying ever. I read this morning where ever, the best numbers. He's lost much of the black population because he's done a horrible job for black people. He's also done a horrible job for
Something
Hispanics.
like
But when you see
87% of
these
black
millions
voters say they're
people
voting for
pouring into
Biden,
our country, and they're going
I
to
think,
take the
last
jobs,
poll I saw.
and it's already started, and you haven't seen anything yet. It's a disaster.
You've 38 seconds left. President Trump, will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
So I want absolutely immaculate clean water, and I want absolutely clean air, and we had it. We had H2O.
No, you didn't.
We had the best.
You complained
numbers
about batteries
ever.
and sharks.
And we were using all forms of energy, all forms, everything. And yet, during my 4 years, I had the best environmental numbers ever. And
What
my
numbers?
top environmental people
What
gave
fucking-
me that statistic.
what is an
just before I
environmental
walked on the
number?
stage, actually.
I don't know where the hell he's been. The
Yeah.
idea that anything he said is true. I've passed the most extensive climate change legislation in history.
That's actually
In
true.
history. We find ourselves, and by the way,
It wasn't
Black
nearly
colleges,
enough, but that is a
came
true
up with
statement.
$15 billion for HBCUs, historic black universities and colleges, because they don't have the kind of contributors that they have to build these laboratories and the like. Any black student is capable in college of doing any white student can do. They just don't have the money, but now they'll be able to get those jobs in high tech. We're in a situation where the idea that he is claiming to have done something that had the cleanest water, he hadn't done a damn thing.
Michigan
with the
begs to
environment.
differ.
He pulled out of the Paris Peace Accord, Climate Accord. I immediately joined it because if we reach 1.5 degrees Celsius at any one point, there's no way back. The only existential threat to humanity is climate change, and he didn't do a damn thing about it. He wants to undo all that I've done.
The Paris Accord was going to cost us $1 trillion, and China nothing, and Russia nothing, and India nothing. It was a ripoff of the United States. And I ended it because I didn't want to waste that money because they treat us horribly. We were the only ones. It was costing us money. Nobody else was paying into it. And it was a
that wasn't a
disaster.
paying into it
But
thing.
Everything that he said just now. I'll give you an example. I heard him say before insulin.
It was just
I'm the one
I
that got
super
the
duper
insulin
promise
down
that I'm
for the
going to not
seniors. I
fuck
took
up the
care of
environment.
seniors. What he's doing is destroying all of our medical programs because the migrants coming in, they want everybody. And look, I have the biggest.
Why is it always
fart on the
migrants?
Stage, I guarantee you that. And
Why
I
does
wanna
it always
take
come
care
back
of
to
people.
migrants?
But we're destroying our country. They're taking over our schools, our hospitals, and they're going to be taking over Social Security. He is destroying Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid.
What the fuck did that even have to
idea
do
is
with
that
anything?
We, in fact, we were the only ones of consequence who were not members of the Paris Accord. How can we do anything? We've not able to, the United States can't get its pollution under control. One of the largest polluters in the world, number one. We're making significant progress. By 2035, we will have cut pollution in half. We have made significant progress, and we're continuing to make progress. We set up a climate corps for thousands of young people to learn how to deal with climate, just like the Peace Corps. And we're moving in directions that are going to significantly change the elements of cause of pollution. But the idea that he claims that he has the biggest heart up here and he's really concerned about pollution and about climate, I've not seen any indication of that. And by the way, with regard to prescription drugs, one company agreed that they would reduce the price to $35, which I was calling for, one, voluntarily. I made sure every company in the world, every pharmaceutical company, cannot have to pay.
Thank you.
And by the way,
So every day, millions of Americans struggle just to make ends meet.
What
For
the
many
fuck was that
older
last thing?
Americans, Social Security provides a critical lifeline. President Biden, if nothing is done to Social Security, seniors will see their benefits cut in just over 10 years. Will you name tonight one specific step that you're willing to take to keep Social Security solvent?
Yes, make the very wealthy begin to pay their fair share. Right now,
Actually do
everybody
it.
making under $170,000 pays 6% of their income, of their paycheck, every single time they get a paycheck from the time of the first one they get when they're 18 years old. The idea that they're going to, I'm proposing that everybody, they pay, the millionaires pay 1%. So no one I would not raise the cost of Social Security for anybody under $400,000. After that, I began to make the wealthy begin to pay their fair share by increasing from 1% beyond to be able to guarantee the program for life.
So you still have 82 seconds left. Are there any other measures that you think that would be able to help keep Social Security solvent, or is that one enough?
Well, no, that one enough will keep it solvent, but the biggest thing I'll do if we defeat this man, because he wants to get rid of Social Security. He thinks there's plenty to cut in Social Security. He's wanting to cut Social Security and Medicare, both times. And that's what. And if you look at the program put forward by the House Republican caucus that I believe supports, is in fact want to cut it as well.
Yeah.
The idea that
That'd be the
we don't need
MTGs and the
to
Lauren
protect our
Boeberts.
seniors is ridiculous. And by the way, the American public has greater health care coverage today than ever before. And on the ACA, as I said, you're in a circumstance where 400,000 people, 40 million people would not have insurance because they have a pre-existing condition. Only thing that allows them to have that insurance is the fact that they, in fact, are part of the ACA. And by the way, the other thing is, we're in a situation where I talk about education for black communities. I've raised the amount of money for Pell Grants by another $8,000. So anybody making under $70,000 a year is going to be able to get $15,000 toward their tuition. He just doesn't know what he's talking about.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump.
So I've dealt with politicians all my life. I've been on this side of the equation for the last 8 years. I've never seen anybody.
8 years
lie
has
like
been
this
all his
guy.
life.
He lies. I've never seen it. He could look you in the face. About so many other things too. And we mentioned the laptop. We mentioned Russia, Ukraine. Everything he does is a lie. It's misinformation and disinformation.
Oh my God, so much projection.
The losers and suckers story that he made up is a total lie on the military.
So
it's a
much
disgrace.
projection.
But Social Security, he's destroying it because millions of people are pouring into our country, and they're putting them onto Social Security.
How
They're
does
putting them
more
onto
immigrants
Medicare,
destroy
Medicaid.
Social Security?
They're
There's more
putting them in
people
our
paying into it.
hospitals. They're taking
If
the
they
place
actually
of
give them
our
status.
citizens. What they're doing to the VA, to our veterans, is unbelievable. Our veterans are living in the street, and these people are living in luxury hotels. He doesn't know what he's doing, and it's really coming back. I've never seen such anger in our country before.
President Biden.
The idea that veterans are not being taken care of, I told you before. And by the way, when I said suckers and losers, he acknowledged after that he fired that general. That general got fired because he's the one that acknowledged that that's what he said. He was the one standing with Trump when he said it, number one. Number two, the idea that we're going to be in a situation where all these millions and millions, the way he talks about it, illegal aliens are coming into the country and taking away our jobs. There's a reason why we have
undocumented
the
immigrants. You
fastest
don't need to
growing
call them
economy in the
illegal
world.
aliens.
The reason why we have the most successful economy in the world. We're doing better than any other nation in the world. And by the way, those 15 Nobel laureates he talked about being phony, those 15 Nobel laureates, economists, they all said that if Trump is reelected, we're likely to have a recession and inflation is going to increasingly go up. And by the way, worst president in history, 159 presidential scholars voted him the worst president in the history of the United States of America.
President Biden,
That actually
thank you
is
so much.
true.
Let's turn to the cost of child care, which many American
I remember
families
that
struggle
study.
to afford. President Trump, both you and President Biden have tried to address this issue, but the average cost of child care in this country has risen to more than $11,000 a year per child. For many families, the cost of child care for 2 children is more than their rent. In your second term, what would you do to make child care more affordable?
Just to go back, the general
don't go
got
back.
fired
Answer the
because
question.
he was no good. And if he said that, that's why he made it up. But we have 19 people that said I didn't say it, and they're very highly respected, much more so than him. The other thing is,
Name them.
he doesn't fire people. He never fired people.
I have
Never
to
seen
pee,
him
but I have
fire
wireless
anybody.
headphones, so
I
I'll
did
still
fire
be
a lot.
listening.
I fired Comey because he was no good. I fired a lot of the top people at the
Woo-woo.
FBI. Drained the swamp. They were no good. Not easy to fire people. You'd pay a price for it, but they were no good. I inherited these people. I didn't put them there. I didn't put Comey there. He was no good. I fired him. This guy hasn't fired anybody. He never fires. He should have fired every military man that was involved with that the Afghanistan horror show, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. He didn't fire. Did you fire anybody? Did you fire anybody that's on the border that's allowed us to have the worst border in the history of the world? Did anybody get fired for allowing 18 million people, many from prisons, many from mental institutions? Did you fire anybody that allowed our country to be destroyed? Joe, our country is being destroyed as you and I sit up here and waste a lot of time on this debate. This shouldn't be a debate. He is the worst president. He just said about me because I said it. But look, he's the worst president in the history of our country. He's destroyed our country. Now all of a sudden he's trying to get a little tough on the border. He came out with a nothing deal, and it reduced it a little bit, like this much. It's insignificant. He wants open borders. He wants our country to either be destroyed or he wants to pick up those people as voters. And I don't think we just can't let it happen. If he wins this election, our country doesn't have a chance, not even a chance, of coming out of this rut. We probably won't have a country left anymore. That's how bad it is. He is the worst in history by far.
You didn't hear it, but I was yelling at my toilet, and that pretty much sums up my feelings about Trump.
We're the United States of America. There's nothing beyond our capacity. We have the finest military in the history of the world, the finest in the history of the world. No one thinks we're weak. No one wants to screw around with us. Nobody.
I didn't miss the super chat. I heard it.
Number two, the idea that we're talking about worst presidents. I wasn't joking. Look it up. Go online. 159 or
so was he really bragging about how many people he fired?
Presidential historians. They've had
like, you remember at the in the 2016 election, you talked about how he always hires the best people.
They said he was the worst in all of American history. That's a fact. That's not conjecture. He can argue they're wrong, but that's what they voted. The idea that he is doing anything to deal with
it was Trump who initiated the Afghanistan retreat. Biden just
care.
carried on with what Trump set in motion.
The tax credit. We should significantly increase the availability of women and men or single parents to be able to go back to work, and we should encourage businesses to have.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, the
Haji
question was
140
about
says,
what
I'm
would
so
you do
mad
to
I
make
can't
childcare
type.
more affordable. If you want to take your
Have you
minute.
tried just being
you
numb?
understand, we have
That's kind of where
we
I'm
have
at.
other things that they rate him the worst because what he's done is so bad. And they rate me, I'll show you, I will show you. And they rate me one of the best, okay? And if I'm given another 4 years, I will be the best. I think I'll be the best.
God.
Nobody's ever created an economy like us. Nobody ever cut taxes like us. He's the only one I know. He wants to raise your taxes by 4 times. He wants to raise everybody's taxes by 4 times. He wants the Trump tax cuts to expire. So everybody, including the two of you, are going to pay 4 to 5 times. Nobody ever heard of this before. All my life, I'd grow up and I'd see politicians talking about cutting taxes. When we cut taxes, as I said, we did more business. Apple and all these companies, they were bringing money back into our country. The worst president in history by far, and everybody knows it.
President Biden?
Look, the fact of the matter is that he's dead wrong about. He's increased the tariff. He will increase the taxes on middle-class people. I said I'd never raise the tax on anybody making less than $400,000. I didn't. But this tariff is 10% tariffs. Everything coming into the country, you know what the economists say? That's going to cost the average American $2,500 a year more because they're going to have to pay the difference in food and all the things that were imported. Number two, he's in a situation where he talks about how he has not raised, he's somehow helped the middle class. The middle class have been devastated by you. Now you want a new tax cut of $5 trillion over the next 10 years, which is going to fundamentally bankrupt the country. You had the largest deficit of any president in American history, number one. Number two, you have not, in fact, made any contact, any progress with China. We are the lowest trade deficit with China since 2010.
Thank you,
We're at the
President Biden.
highest. You lost
Thank you, President Biden. Let's discuss an epidemic impacting millions of Americans that both of you have made a top priority in your first term, the opioid crisis. And for both of you, the number of overdose deaths in this country has gone up. Under your term, it went up. Under your term, it has gone up. Former President Trump, despite the efforts that both of you have made, more than 100,000 Americans are dying from overdoses every year, primarily from fentanyl and other opioids. What will you do to help Americans right now in the throes of addiction who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
To finish up, we now have
No,
the largest
answer the question.
deficit in the history of our country under this guy. We have the largest deficit with China. He gets paid by China. He's a Manchurian candidate. He gets money from China.
He's a Manchurian. He doesn't even know
he's
what a
afraid
fucking
to do
Manchurian
it.
candidate is. What the fuck?
Do you notice he never took
Answer the goddamn question.
We bring in so much money with the tariffs that I imposed on China. He never took them away. He
Hey,
can't because
hey,
it's
Heidi.
too much money. It's tremendous.
Would
And
you
we
be
saved
against
our
me,
steel
like,
industries, and there was
using
more
the
to come,
marijuana
but
now
he hasn't done
inside?
that. But he hasn't cut the tariffs because he can't, because it's too much
Not
money.
really,
but
but
he's got the largest deficit
he's making me
in
wanna.
the history of our country, and he's got the worst situation with China. China's going to own us if you keep allowing them to do what they're doing to us as a country. They are killing us as a country, Joe, and you can't let that happen. You're destroying our country.
So, President Trump, you have 67 seconds left. The question was, what are you going to do to help Americans in the throes of addiction right now who are struggling to get
How do you help
treatment
someone
they
who is
need?
actually addicted
Dick, we're
right
doing
now?
very well
What
in
mental
addiction
health
until
services
the
are you
COVID
going to
came
offer?
along. We had the 2.5, almost 3 years of like nobody's ever had before, any country, in every way. And then we had to get tough, and it was the drugs pouring across the border were.
I'm going to give that the COVID shutdown
started
attention.
to increase. We got great equipment.
basically
we bought
did
the
that
certain
earlier.
dog that's the most incredible thing that you've ever seen. The way
We
they
bought
can
the
spot it.
certain
We did
dog
a
that's
lot,
the most
and we
incredible
were
thing we've
getting
ever
very
seen.
low numbers, very, very
The
low numbers.
fuck is he talking
Then you came
about?
along. The numbers, have you seen the numbers now? It's not only the 18 million people that I believe is even low because they.
How
the
are you going to
gotaways,
help
haven't even
people
talked
with
about
addiction
gotaways.
problems, you fucking
The numbers
idiot?
Of the amount
That's
of
not the
drugs and human
question.
trafficking in women coming across our border, the worst thing I've ever seen, at numbers that nobody's ever seen under him because the border's so bad.
How
The
are you
number of
going
drugs
to
coming
help
across our border now
people?
is the largest we've ever had by far.
President Trump, thank you. President Biden?
Fentanyl and the byproducts of fentanyl went down for a while. And I wanted
No,
to make sure
Biden,
we use them
don't
machines
answer that.
can detect
Just
fentanyl.
fucking say how
Big
you're going to
machines
help
that roll
people.
over everything that comes across the border. And it costs a lot of money. That was part of this deal we put together, this bipartisan deal. More fentanyl machines, more be able
What
to
is a
detect
fentanyl
drugs,
machine? Come
more numbers of
No,
agents, more
no.
numbers
Answer
of
the question.
all
How are you going to
border.
help people
And
that have
when we had that
addiction
deal
problems?
done, he called his Republican colleagues, said, don't do it. It's going to hurt me politically. No, he never argued it's not a good bill. It's a really good bill. We need those machines. We need those machines.
This
We're
whole
coming
goddamn
down
thing is
very
about the
hard in
border.
every country
Whole
in
fucking
Asia
thing.
in terms of precursors for fentanyl, and Mexico is working with us to make sure.
Can I
we
mark
don't
fake
have the
news? No, because
technology to be
he
able to
hasn't
put it
called.
together.
That's specifically
what we
calling
have
the
to do.
moderators
We
fake
need
news. I don't
those
think he's done that yet.
machines.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, and again, the question is about Americans in the throes of addiction right
Where's
now.
Kyle?
Struggling to get
Get
the
us
treatment
Kyle.
they need.
Well, because this does pertain to it.
No, it doesn't.
He ended Remain in Mexico. He ended catch and release. I made it catch and release in Mexico.
How does that
I made
help
catch and
people who
release
are
here.
currently addicted
We
to
had
drugs?
so many things that we had done, hard negotiations with Mexico, and I got it all for nothing. It's just like when you have a hostage. We always pay $6 billion for a hostage. Every time we
The
say it's a
question
hostage.
is,
Now we
how
have a
are you
hostage,
going
the
to
Wall Street
help
Journal
people that are
reported.
addicted to
I
drugs?
think a good guy, and he's over there because Putin.
What does
is
this have
laughing
to
at
do
this
with
guy,
it?
Probably asking for billions of dollars for the reporter. I will have him out very quickly as soon as I take office. Before I take office, I said by literally as soon as I win the election, I will have that reporter out. He should have had him out a long time ago. But Putin's probably asking for billions
fuck
and
is he even
billions of
talking-
dollars because this guy pays it every time. We had 2 cases where he paid $6 billion for
Just
5
a reminder,
people.
the question
I got
is,
58
what would you do
people
to
out,
help
and I paid
people that need
essentially
your
nothing.
help right now?
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
Let's turn to concerns that voters have.
No,
about
let's go
each
back
of
to that question. Get them to
President
actually
Biden,
answer that fucking
you would
question.
be 86 at the end of your second term. How do you address concerns about your capability to handle the toughest job in the world.
I mean, he clearly
well
doesn't
into
have the
80s.
capability because he's
First of all,
fucking
spent
sleeping
half
on
my career
stage.
being criticized being the youngest person in politics.
Yeah,
I was the
nobody
second
fucking
youngest
cares
person
about what you
ever
were when you were
elected
the
to United
youngest.
States Senate, and now I'm the oldest. This guy's 3 years younger and a lot less competent. I think that just look at the record. Look at what I've done. Look how I've turned around the horrible situation he left me. As I said, 15 million new jobs, 800,000 manufacturing jobs, more investment in America, over billions of dollars in private investment in enterprises that we are
The
growing.
Unvoid Kitty says they answered
By
it.
the
They
way,
don't
we
care
brought
about people
a lot of
struggling with
people
addiction.
along.
Yep.
The whole
That's what I
idea
got from that.
of computer chips. We used to have 40% of the market. We invented those chips, and we lost it because he was sending people to find the cheapest jobs overseas and then bring home a product. So I went to South Korea. I convinced Samsung to invest billions of dollars here in the United States, and guess what? Those fabs they call that to build these chips. Those fabs pay over $100,000. You don't need a college degree for them. And there's billions, about $40 billion already being invested and being built right now in the United States, creating significant jobs for Americans.
That's a good point, Tisha.
All over the world.
President Biden, you have 40 seconds left. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I would. The idea that somehow we are this failing country. I never heard a president talk like this before. We're the envy of the world. Name me a single major country president who wouldn't trade places with the United States of America for all our problems and all our opportunities. We're the most progressive country in the world in getting things done. We're the strongest country in the world. We're a country in the world who keeps our word, and everybody trusts us.
No, you're
all of our allies.
Everybody
And
trusts us.
and
Fuck off.
And those who he cuddles up to, from Kim Jong-un, we sent love letters to, and Putin, etc. They don't want to screw around with us.
Thank you. Former President Trump, to follow up, you would be 82 at the end of your second term. What do you say to voters who have concerns about your capabilities to serve?
Well, I took 2 tests, cognitive tests. I aced them.
Oh,
Both
for
of them, as
fuck's
you know.
sake. I aced the test
He
that's
took none. I'd
designed to
like
be
see him
super
pick
fucking
one, just
easy.
one, a real easy one. Like go through the first 5 questions. He couldn't do it. But I took 2 cognitive tests. I took physical
I'm glad he's
exams
laughing
every
at him
year.
for that.
And, you know, we knock on wood wherever we may have wood.
Didn't his
Glad
doctor
I'm
get in
very
trouble
good
for?
health. I just won.
Didn't
2
his
club
doctor get like
championships,
fired
not
from the
even
military
senior.
for
2
being
regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite
too
smart.
much of a piece
and
of
you have
shit
to be able
or
to
something?
hit the ball a long way. And I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards.
He has
I
a
think
guy
I'm in very
drop
good
the ball
shape.
where
I
it's
feel that
convenient
I'm
for
as
him.
in good a shape as I was 25, 30 years ago. Actually, I'm
So not
probably a
good
little
shape.
bit lighter, but I'm in as good a shape as I was years ago. I feel very good. I feel the same. But I was willing to take a cognitive test. And you know what? If I didn't do well, I aced them. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who's a great guy when he was White House doctor. And then I took
Wasn't it
another
Ronnie
one, a similar
Johnson, or
one.
was that what he said his name
And
was
both-
last time?
One of them said they've never seen anybody ace him.
Thank you. President Biden.
He'd never seen anybody
He
ace the
is
test that's literally
6'5" and only
pass or fail.
223 pounds, or 235 pounds. Well, you said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, that's it. Anyway, just take a look at what he says he is, and take a look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. The reason I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. But by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf.
Why are they
You can carry it
playing?
on back.
Why are they talking about fucking golf? Nobody cares about
He's a 6 handicap.
fucking golf.
I was an 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8.
I don't even know what a
You know,
fucking
I-
handicap is in
Serious
golf.
swing
Like,
on
fuck
any
off.
Okay,
Let's
you know,
not
you
act
know,
like
around-
children.
President Trump, we're going to
21
turn
Let's
Right.
not act like children.
Says
to a
Trump.
specific concern
Fuck
that
off.
voters have about you. Will you pledge tonight that once all
You're too
legal
old to be
challenges have
president.
been
Hey, but I can
exhausted,
play
that
golf,
you
though.
will accept
The fuck?
results of this election, regardless of who wins, and you will say right now that political violence in any form is unacceptable?
Well, I shouldn't have to say that, but of course I believe that. It's totally
You-
unacceptable.
no, you don't start with I shouldn't
And if
have
you would
to
see
say
my
that.
statements
Just say
that
it.
I made on Twitter at the time, and also my statement that I made in the Rose Garden, you would say it's one of the strongest statements you've ever
No,
seen. In
I
addition to the
wouldn't.
speech I made in front of, I believe, the largest
I did
crowd
see
I've
that.
ever spoken to, and I will tell
Oh
you,
my God.
nobody ever talks about that. They talk about a
Just say the
relatively small
fucking thing.
number of people
Just
that
say the
went
thing
to
she asked you to
Capitol,
say.
and in many cases were ushered in by the police. And as Nancy Pelosi said, It was her responsibility, not mine. She said that loud and clear. But the answer is, if the election is fair, free, and I want that more than anybody. And I'll tell you something.
No, just say you'll accept the results.
I wish he was a great president, because I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be at one of my many places enjoying myself. I wouldn't be under indictment because I wouldn't have been his political opponent, because he indicted me because I was his opponent.
Biden had nothing to do with that.
I wish he was a great president. I would rather have that. I wouldn't be here. I don't mind being here. But the only reason I'm here is he's so bad as a president that I'm going to make America great again. We're going to make America great again. We're a failing nation right now. We're a seriously failing nation. And we're a failing nation because of him. His policies are so bad. His military policies are insane. They're insane. These are wars that will never end with him. He will drive us into World War III, and we're closer to World War III
The wars that will never end with him, but earlier he complained, he literally complained about him ending a war.
And he's driving us there. And Kim Jong-un and President Xi of China, Kim Jong-un of North Korea, all of these, Putin, they don't respect him. They don't fear him. They have nothing going with this gentleman.
Jackass.
And he's going to drive us into World War III.
You want a World War III, let him follow and win, and let Putin say, do what you want, NATO. Just do what you want. There's a thing called Article 5. An attack on one is an attack on all, and required response. The idea, I can't think of a single major leader in the world who wouldn't trade places with the job I've done and what they've done. Because we are a powerful nation.
Even mean?
We have wonderful peace. It's because of the people, not me. It's because of the American people. They're capable of anything, and they step up when they're needed. And right now, we're needed. We're needed to protect the world because our own safety is at stake. And again, you want to have a war, just let Putin go ahead and take Kyiv, make sure they move on, see what happens in Poland, Hungary, and other places along that border. Then you have a war.
President Trump, as I come back to you for a follow-up, the question was, will you accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins?
Just to finish what he said. If
No, answer the question.
Russia, they took a lot of land from Bush. They took a lot of land from
Russia
Obama
took land
and
from
Biden.
Bush?
They took no land, nothing.
The
from
fuck
Trump,
does that
nothing.
even
He
mean?
knew not to do it.
How did Russia take land from Obama?
I got along with him very well, but he knew not to play games. He took nothing from me.
No, you gave him everything
Now
you
he's
wanted.
gonna
He didn't
take the
need to
whole
take
thing
it.
from this man right here. That's a war that should have never started. It would have never started ever with me. And he's going to take Ukraine. And, you know, you asked me a question
Just
before.
say that you'll accept the results of the election.
Right now with Ukraine and Russia. Because Ukraine's not winning that war. He said, I will never settle until such time. They're running out of people. They're running out of soldiers. They've lost so many people. It's so sad. They've lost so many people, and they've lost those gorgeous cities with the golden domes that are 1,000 years old, all because of him and stupid decisions. Russia would have never attacked if I were president.
Russia attacked a golden dome that's 1,000 years old?
Regardless of who wins, yes or no, please.
If it's a fair and legal
No,
and good
no,
election,
fuck
absolutely.
you.
I would
Fuck
have
you.
much rather
This is just
accepted
setting it up.
these,
This is
but
setting up
the
another
fraud
coup.
And everything
This
else
is him
was
setting up another
ridiculous.
fucking
And if you
coup.
want, we'll have a news conference on it in a week, or we'll have another one of these in a week. But I will absolutely, there's nothing I'd rather do. It would be much easier for me to do that than I'm running again. I wasn't really going to run until I saw the horrible job he did.
Oh, bullshit.
He's destroying our country.
Bullshit.
I would be very happy to be someplace else, in a nice location someplace. And again, no indictments, no political opponent stuff, because it's the only way he thinks he can win. But unfortunately, it's driven up my numbers, and it's driven them up to a very high level, because the people understand it.
Let's see what your numbers
Sorry, I just
are
had to grab a
when
therapy
this election's
boob.
over. Let's see. You're a whiner. When you lost the first time, you continued, you appealed and appealed to courts all across the country. Not one single court in America said any of your claims had any merit, state or local, none. But you continue to provoke this lie about somehow there's all this misrepresentation, all this stealing. There is no evidence of that at all. And I tell you what, I doubt whether you'll accept it because you're such a whiner. The idea, if you lose again, you accepting anything, you can't stand the loss. Something snapped in you when you lost the last time.
We'll be right back with more from the CNN presidential debate live from...
Fuck's sake. Wow. So you can stamp massive fraud by did he say massive fraud? I missed it. Yeah, literally said you were going to run again as soon as you fucking lost. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I'll give him the massive fraud, so that's a double bingo. We got bingo! Didn't really want bingo on this one. I would have, like... Oh, yeah, you know, Biden fucking sucks. This debate is making that quite clear. But it's also making it clear that Trump sucks worse. So, yeah, vote for Biden and hope that someone else takes over when he dies of old age in office, because he's fucking old. Oh, my God. He shouldn't have run again. He should have just accepted that he had was one term and then just gracefully gone away and retired. Because he is fucking old. But, you know, at least there will be adults in the room with a Biden presidency. But with Trump, like, nobody's even willing to work with him anymore that would be an adult in the room. It's all going to be the crazy MAGA people. I'm going in for another therapy boob. Squishy, squishy. She's giving me side eye because she's trying to do her... What's that called? Free association? No, it's not free association. What? I don't know. It's that thing where you just kind of like let your hand go and you make loops or whatever and then you color it in later. She made a bird earlier. Looked like a bird to me anyways.
Parrot, to be specific.
A parrot? Yep, so I was right. It was a bird. Yeah, I will again yell that 55 to 60 should be the cap age, not the minimum. I agree.
Hello.
Zena Keller says, I misheard that as therapy poo. No, it was therapy boob. I was getting angry, so I had to grab a squishy thing. And the squishy things are beside me, coloring. I was really hoping that Biden would do better than this. Fennec is offering to mail me stress balls so I can stop grabbing your boobs. She likes it when I grab her boobs, though. Usually. Today she might not. That said, if she doesn't, then all she has to do is say, please no, and I will stop. But she didn't. He may be old, but he's not in poor health. The debate...
To deliver their closing statements.
The debate was never going to be a positive win for either, just who has the least negatives.
Biden, you have 2 minutes.
Yeah. We've made significant progress from the debacle that was left by President Trump in his last term. We find ourselves in a situation where, number one, we have to make sure that we have a fair tax system. I ask anyone out there in the audience, or anyone out watching this debate, do you think the tax system is fair? The fact is that I said nobody even making under $400,000 had a single penny increase in their taxes, and will not. And if I'm reelected, that'll be the case again. But this guy has increased your taxes because of the deficit. Number one,
that's right. I forgot he has a stutter.
Inflation because of the debacle he left after the way he handled the pandemic. And
which
he
I guess
finds
speaks
himself
well
in a
of him.
position where he now wants to tax you more by putting a 10% tariff on everything that comes into the United States of America. What I did, when, for example, he wants to get away with, get rid of the ability of Medicare for the us to be able to negotiate drug prices with the big pharma companies. Well, guess what? We got it down to $35 for insulin instead of $400. No more than $2,000 for every senior, no matter how much prescription they need. You know what that did? That reduced the federal debt by $160 billion over 10 years because the government doesn't have to pay the exorbitant prices. I'm going to make that available to every senior all along, and it's happening now, and everybody in America. He wants to get rid of that. I'm going to make sure that we have child care. We're going to significantly increase the credit people have for child care. I'm going to make sure we do something about what we're doing on lead pipes and all the things that are...
The worst part about this is that he's saying that, well, we're going to make sure we do this, we're going to make sure we do that. He's had 4 years and he hasn't done that.
And give people a break.
Thank you, President Biden.
like,
President Trump,
just
you now have
actually
2
do
minutes for
something.
your closing statement.
Like so many
Like
politicians,
he should have
this man
been
is
able to
just a
say, like, hey,
complainer.
this is what
He
I've
said,
done.
We want to do this, we want to do
excuse
that,
me?
we want to get rid of this tax, that tax. But he doesn't do anything. He doesn't do. All he does is make our country
despite what I
unsafe
just
by
said, he
allowing
actually did do quite a lot.
and millions of people to pour in. Our military doesn't respect him. We look like fools in Afghanistan. We didn't stop Israel. It was such a horrible thing that would have never happened. It should have never happened. Iran was broke. Anybody that did business with Iran,
Israel
including
thing had
China,
nothing. If
they couldn't
anything,
do business
Trump
with the
moving
United States. They
the
all
embassy to
passed.
Jerusalem
Iran
made
was
it
broke.
worse.
They had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah, for terror, no money whatsoever. Again, Ukraine should have never happened. He talks
The
about
money
all
for
the stuff, but
Iran,
he
last
didn't
I
do it.
heard,
For
it was
3.5
still in a
years, we're
frozen
living in
account,
hell.
so Iran doesn't get it.
We have the Palestinians and we have everybody else rioting all over the place. You talk about Charlottesville. This is 100 times Charlottesville.
Palestinians are
1,000
not
times.
rioting all over the
whole
place.
country is
People who support
exploding because of you,
Palestine
because they don't
are
respect
protesting.
you, and they have to respect their president, and they don't respect you throughout the world. What we did was incredible. We rebuilt the military. We got the largest tax cut in history, the largest regulation
For
cut
rich
in history.
people.
The reason he's got jobs is because I cut the regulations that gave jobs, but he's putting a lot of those regulations back on. All of the things that we've done, nobody's
Regulations
ever
are a
never
good
seen
thing.
anything like. Even from a medical standpoint, right to try, where we can try space-age materials instead of going to Asia or going to Europe and trying to get when you're terminally ill. Now you can go and you can get something. You sign a document. They've been trying to get it.
What the fuck is he even
for
talking about?
42 years.
You're
But you know what
terminally
we
ill,
did
so
for
you
the
sign a
military was incredible
document
choice for
that
our
you've been
soldiers,
trying to
for
get
our
for 42
soldiers.
years.
Instead of waiting for 3 months to see
What
a
the fuck
doctor,
does
can
what
go
does
out
he
and
what
get
does he think he just
themselves
said?
Fixed up and readied up and take care of themselves, and they're living. And that's why I had the highest approval rating in the history of the VA. So all of these things, we're in a failing nation, but it's not going to be failing anymore. We're going to make it great again.
Thank you, former President Trump.
What
President
even
Biden.
was that?
Stay with us because we have full analysis
Stay
of
with
this
us.
debate. Anderson Cooper and Aaron Burnett starts now on CNN.
Is it done? Are they leaving? Was that the end statement? What the fuck is this dead air? We're just looking at 2 old men staring into the camera. I think the debate's over. That was the end statement? Are they not going to talk to each other at all for this? Okay. Okay, I'll give you my analysis. They both suck. But one of them sucks significantly less than the other and doesn't lie incessantly. I mean, he still lies. There were things that he said that weren't even... I think those were the closing... Like, Neon Void Kitty saying not even closing statements. I think those were supposed to be the closing statements. But yeah, that seemed rather abrupt. I don't know. We got bingo. We didn't get as much as I thought we were going to get. I'm sure he probably said think of it somewhere and I just didn't notice it. Maybe not tremendous. And I know there was one point where he was alluding to Fonnie Willis, Jack Smith, and Letitia James. But I didn't check that box because he didn't say their name. Yeah, so they both suck. But one sucks significantly less than the other. I'm sorry that that's your choice. But, like, literally... It like, lesser of two evils in this case is not just a little lesser, it's significantly lesser. Like, Trump literally said he's going to be a dictator on day one. So Did the old man get tired and they just fucking ended it? No, it was supposed to only be an hour and a half, and I do remember there being something about their closing statements being like 2 minutes long or something, and Trump got the last word. And oh yeah, remember Project 2025 is a thing. Jassa says, help me find a woman to marry in Toronto. Well, given what we talked about last time with how myself and my partner plan on getting married in every country except Canada, I guess you can marry her in Canada for immigration purposes. Yeah, that I'm not satisfied with that. Yeah, no, that was a very not satisfying debate. It was like when you're having sex and then the kids interrupt and there's not an opportunity to finish anything, and it's just frustrating and there's nothing you can do about it. And you know you have to do the right thing, which is vote for Joe Biden, or in the analogy, give the kid whatever it is they need. But, yeah. So yeah, I'm not happy with that. Nobody else is happy with that. It fucking sucks. John says, bad analogy, Rhino. Having sex would be pleasant at first. Good point. Good point. The moderators gave Trump too much leeway when he veered back a question Biden never got that same break. Yeah, I guess. They weren't staying on topic at all. Everything just came back to immigration. Everything. Like, hey, what would you do to help people who are addicted to drugs? He's bad for immigration. How does that answer the question? It doesn't. It doesn't answer the question. They don't care about people who are actually addicted. It's like addiction is not like, this is a thing that is worse with Republicans, but the Democrats do it too, is that they see addiction as a self-inflicted, like oh, if you were a better person of more upstanding moral character or whatever, then you wouldn't have become addicted in the first place. But that's not how it shakes out in reality. And like the complete lack of empathy, especially given how personal that matter is for Biden, it was just staggering. Now, I think Biden just kind of got distracted with responding to all the bullshit that Trump was spewing rather than sticking to the issues. But yeah, it was just like, no, you have dealt with addiction in your life. You can speak to this. You can talk about policies that you could enact that would be helpful for this. And like a lot of that debate was infuriating, but that was the part that got me the most, was like these are people that need help and they need destigmatization. They need places they can go that are safe, like medical care that they can get. And sometimes the appropriate thing to do is supervised access to the drugs, as opposed to throwing them in prison for being addicts. And that's the thing that Biden should be excellent at talking about, because he has the personal experience with it. So it was incredibly frustrating to see him just get distracted by trying to respond to everything that Trump said. Yeah. So yeah, not happy about it, but if I was American, I'd still be voting Biden. And yeah, I guess that's it for the stream. Thanks for joining me. I'm sorry that Cyrus wasn't here. But yeah, I guess bye.
Who
won? Nobody won. Everybody lost that debate. The American people lost that debate most of all. It sucked. So yeah, on that note, bye.